Chapter 607. The astral winds whistled and the clouds surged. Occasionally, a shower of ice crystals would blow past, reflecting the firelight that seeped through the gaps between the clouds. It was dazzling and possessed destructive power. Luonin felt quite marvelous as he watched the ice crystal shards penetrate his body. Recently, he mostly used the soul cloak to observe the cloud world from afar, monitoring the whereabouts of Gongqi and Snake Tongue. Firstly, it was convenient. Secondly, it was safe. Today, his soul entered the out-of-body state, and he especially interfered with the clouds to form a half-real, half-incorporeal water vapor humanoid. He felt a bit of novelty when he first used it. If he was like this, then there was no need to mention Rue 1, who entered for the first time. The little girl's figure flickered back and forth between the clouds, appearing and disappearing erratically. She was still adapting to the feeling of flying through the air. Occasionally, Luonin would need to interfere with the void to lend her strength. However, seeing her more and more agile and free performance, it seemed that flying unhindered through the clouds and leaving no traces behind wouldn't be an obstacle that was difficult to surpass in the near future. Thinking too much is useless. Being in a good mood is truly good. Luonin took care of Rue 1 as he split a bit of his attention to lock onto two targets several thousand kilometers away. Right now, Gongqi and Snake Tongue were together. They seemed to be studying a mushed-mouth ape. This was a living body that they had caught with great difficulty. Controlling it was quite troublesome. Snake Tongue was a B-rank curse mage. She didn't possess an overwhelming advantage when compared to the mushed-mouth ape. She was tossed around quite a bit when she was alone in the cloud world. Luonin sneered. Rue, when suddenly hovered in the air at this time, coming to a steady stop by his side. The structure of her body and soul formed an intense, resonant relationship with the surrounding clouds of the void. It caused Luonin's water vapor, humanoid form, to distort a bit, but it soon began to decrease in magnitude. It was even more restrained and restrained. 10 seconds later, it was nearly impossible to detect unless one deliberately probed. You can fly now? I'm still trying. Rue gave a simple answer. Her slender figure undulated a bit as she enunciated her words. 2 seconds later, she stabilized. Do your best. Luonin could only express this way when faced with Rue-Wen's talent. Next, Luonin took advantage of Rue-Wen's time to adapt to her new technique to begin his work as a commentator. He shared the scene of his perception through a closed system. It's these two, our targets. As they spoke, Snake Tongue attempted to hypnotize and control the captured mushed-mouth ape with Gongqi's help. However, what awaited her was yet another failure. This wasn't the first time a similar situation had occurred. This made Luonin deeply feel that the day he caught the Wraith sign would be the day his luck attribute would go off the charts. Luonin gave Rue an explanation of what Gongqi and Snake Tongue were currently doing. In the end, he even went into a deeper analysis. Actually, Gongqi opening this project and giving Snake Tongue the opportunity to control the mushed-mouth ape might not be out of good intentions. He needs to find something for Snake Tongue to do. Remember? I said that these two people's situations are different. Both of them are trapped, but Snake Tongue has been misled by Gongqi. She believes that Gongqi can come and go at any time. She was fine before, but after being trapped in the clouds for 2 months, Snake Tongue's patience is about to run out. What replaced it is suspicion. If Gongqi can't bring out something new, we might be able to see them turn on each other. Actually, Luonin had thought of using this matter to make a fuss. However, after some consideration, he felt that this wasn't his domain of expertise. Playing schemes with Gongqi and Snake Tongue might alert the enemy and make things worse, so he didn't delve too deeply into it. Right now, he was paying more attention to the technical segment. There were many problems he needed to solve if he wanted to kill Gongqi. This fellow Gongqi has the ability to teleport his soul body. I once saw him leap 2,000 kilometers in one go. He's extremely powerful. If we can't succeed in our first attack, he will very likely escape. Of course, we aren't bad either. But if the ambush turns into a chase, the variables will be too great. Rue, when floated to the side and expressed once more, I will do my best. No, no, no. This segment is mainly testing me. It's the problem of my control precision. Luonin didn't want Rue when to add more pressure to herself. And it was just as he said. If he wanted to do a good job in the ambush, then he needed to completely play out all of his resource cards in the shortest amount of time possible. Moreover, he needed to accurately hit Gong Chi-Chi's old face. Precision was the most crucial and direct requirement. It was even more important and more difficult than the strength of the artillery shell. The artillery strike that destroyed Gong Chi-Chi's fleshly body in Chan City needed to be closely synchronized with the assault in the Cloud World. The Jin Tong seed imprint needed to accurately hit Gong Chi-Chi's fleshly body, which was under the layers of protection of headquarters. It needed to accurately grasp the time to seize the energy of Gong Chi-Chi's fleshly body. Then it would accurately jump back to the clouds and join the ranks of those who surrounded and killed Gong Chi-Chi. Any mistake in any segment would cause unexpected problems to crop up and produce variables. To put it bluntly, Luo Nan's plan wasn't perfect. Its tolerance for error was far too low. The possibility of interference was far too high. It was far too easy to lose control. But this was the only opportunity he could think of. It was also the only way to squeeze out all of Gong Chi-Chi's strength. Luo Nan's heart was apprehensive, but he had no way of telling this feeling to anyone. Luckily, he had Rue 1. He had the best listener in the world. Right now, I can only use the observation and positioning of the large coordinate system to carry out the interference effect. Did I say the large coordinate system before? Oh, this is the name I came up with. I just comprehended it not too long ago. It can be considered my extraordinary domain, even though I'm not extraordinary. It's using me as the origin and the body and soul order frame as the core law. I embed my own law within the interference area. Right now, my soul cloak has already covered nearly the entire Earth. Even though I can't receive all information at the same time, if I focus my mind, I can pour my attention to any point in the coverage area at any time. Once I realize it, I can do it. It looks very simple, right? But it's super difficult to actually do it. Luo Nin met Rue Wen's gaze and subconsciously extended his hand. He drew a draft diagram of space-time interference amidst the surging clouds. There are times when human strength is limited. It doesn't matter which side of space-time it is. The unchanging laws of physics still hold the absolute dominant position. I'm not the creator. I have no way of fighting against the structure of space-time. If I want to temporarily distort the laws of physics in the relevant area, I must satisfy many conditions on top of the foundation of a powerful energy output. Every missing condition will cause the energy output to increase exponentially until it exceeds the limits of my ability. Over. Chapter 608. With the number of extraordinaries and their reactions over at Chan City. Even if the polar domain cannon succeeds in seizing the energy from Gong Chi's fleshly body, it will still be very difficult to drag the Jin Tong puppet back to the clouds and precisely place it next to Gong Chi. Luo Nin drew circles on the Tan City region as he spoke. Soon, the sketch was completely unrecognizable. He felt that he had lost his composure a bit. He shook his head and turned his face to see Rue Wen's particularly serious expression. TSK, TSK. Even a little girl doesn't look favorably upon me? Actually, the pressure in Luo Nan's heart had been dispelled quite a bit with the narration just now. He actually laughed when he saw Rue Wen's appearance. He extended his hand to stroke the little girl's head. Rue Wen's hair was fine, smooth, and soft. It was like silk and muslin. Even though Luo Nan was in an out-of-body state, interfering with the water vapor of the void to take human form, the sensation of her hair was still wonderful. Don't be nervous. Have a bit of confidence in me, okay? Luo Nan didn't want Rue Wen to worry, so he changed the topic. Don't look at how difficult the matter is. It's not impossible. Otherwise, why would I be single-mindedly thinking about smashing my head against the wall? Rue Wen raised her head slightly, allowing the half-real, half-incorporeal hand of water vapor to brush through her hair. Her eyes were still staring at Luo Nan, not blinking at all. Luo then felt that he should demonstrate his strength. He erased the sketches floating in the clouds and drew a new set of images. It was a 3D image of a seemingly ordinary gear. Using this as a foundation, he sketched out the lines and rendered the background. In the time of a few breaths, he had drawn a very familiar architectural scene in the cloud world. Oh, this is the North Coast gear, our mother's masterpiece. Do you remember what I said? It doesn't belong to the intersection point between the cloud world and our local space-time. But I'm connecting to the cloud world here. The precision of control is the highest when compared to the volcanic region and the wilderness of Xia City. Luo Nen drew the intersection point between the cloud world and local space-time. He gave the other two intersection points disproportionate marks for illustration. Then he asked, knowing the answer, "Why is it like this?" Gear is the fulcrum that anchors the cloud. Rui really did answer. She was basically repeating Luo Nan's original words. But she was able to extract these words from Luo Nan's large number of explanations in the first instance. It was enough to show that she was listening very seriously. Luo Nan's heart felt warm. He couldn't help but laugh out loud twice. He reached out his hand again and stroked Rui's soft hair. His heart unconsciously rose quite a bit. That's right. Gear is the fulcrum that anchors the clouds. How could it do this? That's because our mother used the method of coupling, using herself as the central axis and her own order framework to drive the environmental forces of the surrounding area layer by layer, forming a formless and moving gear set for her use. The surrounding area doesn't just include Xia City. It even includes the space and time of the cloud world. With our mother's ingenious means, the cloud world and the local space-time opened up a spatial tunnel, creating a special structure that connected the two space-times. Luo Nen endlessly drew details on the cloud sketch. He also poured out the results of his research during this time. Normally, gear on the North Bank is just an ordinary building. It doesn't have a direct connection with the cloud world. The structure that runs through space and time is fractured. The most crucial link has been extracted. But if we have our Luo family's formatting theory to activate the telescope in the atrium of gear, then we have the external neuron in our hands as a special key. The structure that runs through space and time can be reconnected and reconstructed, recreating this miracle. What do you think? Isn't it awesome? Rui gazed at the constantly perfecting sketch and slowly nodded. Luonin grinned. His appearance was a bit odd on the water vapor humanoid, but this wasn't the main point. Right now, he spoke excitedly once more. Gear on the North Bank is the best reference for me to increase my precision. You must know that our mother wasn't an ability user. At the very least, she wasn't an especially powerful ability user. She didn't possess an extraordinary domain. She was unable to impose her own laws and rules on the two sides of space and time. But in the end, she was still able to successfully construct the inconceivable spatial tunnel. Moreover, it was still able to maintain its operation many years later. This is, without a doubt, the result of her coupling theory. She used a tiny basic gear to drive a complex structure and an astonishing number of gears. She used a crowbar to pry up the entire Earth. Driven by his emotions, Luo Nan's water vapor humanoid fluctuated a bit. His pen moved even faster. He drew out a few results from observing gear, observing the cloud world, and observing the structure of the spatial tunnel. He already had a certain result. Of course, it couldn't be considered particularly perfect, especially in the aspect of models. Whether it was geometric structure or algebraic structure, he still didn't have a completely self-consistent result. I'm currently searching for a suitable mathematical tool in the virtual brain system. Fine, I admit that this kind of result is a century or two ahead of times. There should be a few other fulcrums. It won't be easy to thoroughly research it, but it doesn't matter. I can still imitate and reproduce it. If it really doesn't work, I could just copy gear to the other side of the Pacific Ocean. Luo hadn't completely sorted out his later thoughts, so he didn't go into detail. Right now, he was just doing this to pacify Rui's emotions. He didn't forget that he brought Rui to the clouds today to rest and play. Talking about too many serious topics was meaningless, right? At this time, several thousand kilometers away, the two monitoring targets also made some movements. The experiment of controlling the mushed-mouth ape had yet to make any progress, so they began to roam and search once more. They probed the structure of space and time in the cloud world, accumulating data and information for their escape. Gongqi has the ability to teleport. His scouting range is large. We need to maintain a certain distance from him. Oh, but there's no need to worry too much. We'll definitely take the initiative. Luo Nan was prepared to take Rui one for a stroll in the cloud world. Though this place was extremely monotonous, it was still a bit interesting to see the churning clouds, the flames rushing to the skies, and the mushed-mouth ape flying back and forth. There was a mushed-mouth ape approaching a high speed from over 700 kilometers away. This strange demon of the cloud world had the ability to fly untraceable. It just happened to be what Rui needed. And he had always felt that the attack methods of this demon were a bit like muddling the body and soul. It was similar to Rui's miraculous talent. He just happened to bring this little girl over for reference. Let's go consult the mushed-mouth ape's methods. Luo Nan confirmed the target and shared his perspective with Rui. He explained in passing that mushed-mouth ape, isn't it bigger than Yuan X? Actually, Yuan X was like this before. I just tried to move its two arms in a local space and time, and my soul strength was nearly sucked dry. Rui. Chapter 609. Rui. Not easy to control. The little girl's lips moved slightly. Were it not for Luo Nan's powerful mental senses, he would not have been able to hear these words clearly. Huh? Luo Nan didn't understand. Not easy to control? Hovering in the air? Oh, you haven't completely learned how to fly yet. Let me lend you some strength. Rui shook her head slightly. The environment. It's very difficult. Her voice grew even quieter. It seemed that it was especially strenuous. This was absolutely not the result of not being able to fly. Rather, it was more like being bound by an invisible bird net, restricting her ability to move. Luo Nan really jumped in fright. He hurriedly turned around to see what was going on. But when he extended his hand to touch Rui, a low hum rang out. The front of the water vapor humanoid's arm was instantly smacked to pieces by the vibrating vibrations of the void. Luo Nan's out-of-body soul also received the attack due to being in an interference state. His entire body was stupefied, and Rui, on the other side, was like a taut and released elastic that bounced away. Her figure collapsed backward, bouncing 50 meters away in the blink of an eye. Rui. At this moment, Luo Nan faintly sensed that there was a problem with the void structure of the cloud world. But he didn't have time to think too much about it. The partial interference of his soul cloak was pulled back. He wanted to protect Rui to prevent her from being injured by any means. The problem was that when his soul cloak tried to exert force by interfering with the material plane, what it touched was a wave of high-speed vibrations of the void string. The scene of the water vapor humanoid's arm collapsing apart a second ago was perfectly replicated in this moment. The pulled-back soul cloak was torn apart by the incorporeal vibrations. Not only was it unable to help Rui control her body, it instead stimulated an even greater vibration. It caused Rui to turn into a little bird that had lost control. She leaped high and low in the clouds, falling back and forth. She appeared to be particularly excited at first glance, but in reality, she wanted to return to a state of stillness. The scene was actually a bit comical, but neither Luo Nan nor Rui were able to laugh. This was like climbing onto a trampoline. If they wanted to stabilize themselves, they had to press down on the collapsing bed, or they had to wait until all of their kinetic energy was exhausted. Fortunately, Rui herself was extremely calm. She didn't resist the turbulence of the void. She only adjusted the frequency of her body and soul merging. Layer by layer, she neutralized the impact. The extent of her tumbling became smaller and smaller. Gradually, she was able to control herself. Luo Nan let out a breath of relief. He did not dare to rashly interfere with the surrounding environment and cause more trouble for Rui. He simply switched his soul cloak to a pure observational mode, probing the cause of the turbulence in the structure of the void. the structure suddenly became complicated. The space-time structure of the cloud void was different from the space-time of the Earth. Luonin knew this, but previously he was not affected by it. At most, when he was considering the structure of the transspace corridor, he would add one or two more parameters. But now, in the area around Rue 1, it was as if there were countless randomly vibrating spring pieces. When this layer stopped, another layer stirred up, twisting together and affecting each other, causing the clouds and the void to be thrown into disorder. There was no doubt that there was a problem with the deep space-time structure. It was only because Luo Nan had the clairvoyance method of the large coordinate system that he was more sensitive to the curvature of space-time and structure. He was able to discover the blurry and complex details within. After no less than 20 seconds, Rue Wen's figure stabilized again. The little girl looked left and right. She moved her hands and feet lightly, and there was a clear correction in the frequency of her body and soul muddling. Only then was she certain that she had broken free from the disturbance of the space-time structure. Rue Wen still did not dare to move even now. She floated in the middle of the flowing clouds, casting her gaze over a distance of over 100 meters. Her body was restrained. She was like a child who was aware that she had caused a great disaster. Her expression was one of rarely seen fear and pity. Luonin flew over in a hurry. He subconsciously extended his hand, wanting to confirm whether or not she was injured. Halfway through, he discovered that it was inappropriate. He could only caress the little girl's forehead and brush aside the messy hair on her forehead. He asked hurriedly, "Are you hurt?" Rue Wen subconsciously avoided his gaze. It seemed that she was a bit afraid of him. This was a very rare situation. Luonin was worried and baffled. "What's going on? Where are you hurt?" There's no precision. What? This was the first time Luonin felt that Rue 1 and he were not on the same wavelength. If this continued, he could only touch her. Rue Wen simply buried her head under Luonin's gaze. Her voice became even deeper and a bit hoarse. The structure here is too complex. It's very hard to have precision in an assassination. Luonin was stupefied. Even though his soul was in an out-of-body state, he still felt an intense, trembling sensation. He asked subconsciously, "Precision? You can't control it? Is it hard to display your body and soul fusion in this place?" "When I jump," Rue Wen's words were incomplete, but Luonin still understood. "Normal movement is fine. But if it's like when you killed Jean Tong, can't you jump through space?" Rue Wen buried her head even lower. She didn't make another sound, but it was clear that she was tacitly agreeing. Luonin was really stupefied. At this moment, the heart of his main body, which was far beneath gear, was about to jump out of his chest. The scene of Rue Wen struggling to adapt to the void in the clouds came before his eyes. That's right. Luonin had guessed it. Rue Wen should have wanted to attempt to jump through space. But when she used the form of body and soul fusion to interact with the clouds and the void, the structure of space and time manifested an extremely astonishing complexity. It brought Rue Wen far too many disturbances. It destroyed the stable rhythm of her body and soul fusion. There was no need to say what happened next. How could it be like this? Gongqi. What about Gongqi? Gongqi also had the ability to jump through space and teleport. But why didn't he have any problems? Luonin pondered it over and over again. He felt that there was only one reason. Gongqi came in the form of an out-of-body state. Snake Tongue, who he often brought along with him, was the same. Perhaps the astonishingly complicated disturbances and changes like Rue Wen's would not occur if she used the form of pure energy to shuttle through space and time. Otherwise, she could be like the mush-mouth ape. She could fly purely with her fleshly body, not involving techniques like the void shuttle. But why didn't any problems occur when he used the airdrop to transport supplies through the cloud world? Well, it was useless to think about these things. The crux of the matter was, what to do. Luonan's mind was a chaotic mess at this very moment. Rue Wen only appeared for 1/10 of a second or even 100th of a second in his entire plan. But she was the deciding force of victory. If a problem occurred in this segment, then all his other plans would become a joke. Luo Nan's mind was spinning in circles, but Rue Wen's whisper reached his ear. I can do it, huh? Luo Nin wasn't able to react in time, and at this time, the water vapor forearm formed from interference trembled once more. It was suddenly bounced away by the tyrannical shockwave from Rue Wen's body. Rue Wen. Luo Nin shuddered. He subconsciously wanted to exert force, but he fell half a step behind. The little girl's figure was like a fragile bubble, vanishing between his fingers. Luo Nin understood what Rue Wen wanted to do right now, even if he was an idiot. The little girl actually wanted to forcefully practice the void shuttle. Did she really think that the structure of space and time was a trampoline? Luo Nan's thoughts flashed, and he heard an extremely subtle shattering sound come from the surrounding mist. It was completely different from the pure vibrations of the structure of space and time before. This time, his scalp really exploded. He wanted to use the soul cloak to forcefully interfere, but he was worried that it would backfire on him. He could only shout over and over again, "Stop! Rue Wen! Stop!" Rue Wen didn't listen to his command. Her figure just flashed within Luo Nan's sensing range before disappearing. Then she continued to flash and disappear in the surroundings like a flying phantom. Reality was hard to distinguish. Buzz, 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 buzz. Luo Nin wasn't too sure about the specific structure of the surrounding space and time. But the rumbling sound, which was continuously pushed higher and higher, struck directly at his heart. It was as if it could become a mourning sound of collapse and destruction at any moment. Luo Nin stomped his feet in anxiety, but he was simply unable to stop Rue Wen from practicing. He could only use his mental senses to lock onto Rue Wen's figure with all his might. He watched as she shuttled through the void, controlling the landing point of her figure with difficulty. Rue Wen only needed to adapt to a single structural frequency with each jump on Earth. But right now, she pierced through a layer, and then another layer followed. She was strong and weak, fast and slow, and they were even diametrically opposed. The complex, fragmented, and irregular structural pattern made one simply go crazy just by watching. The more Luo Nin watched, the more worried he became. He couldn't care about anything else. He shouted at Rue Wen, "Rue Wen, let's pause. Pause, okay? I can. Rue Wen's voice was small and trembling. She still didn't listen to Luo Nan's command, and her voice clearly carried subtle emotions. Luo Nin never expected that Rue Wen would actually have such a stubborn and rebellious side to her. He could only lock onto Rue Wen's figure and earnestly persuade her. Let's go back. Let's go back and find some time to do systematic practice, okay? We need to do some preliminary research first. Don't forget that I'm the guide. You'll be fine, but I won't be able to if a problem occurs. We need to solve this matter together." Rue Wen responded 2 seconds later, but there was no change in her voice. "I can do it. Rue Wen." Luo Nin was practically roaring. This time, what answered him was an even more intense trembling in the surrounding void. The turbulent shock waves even traveled several hundred kilometers away, twisting the clouds and causing them to scatter and shatter. The shock waves possessed an even greater impact force in the central region. Luo Nan's water vapor figure suddenly froze on the spot. It was severely warped and deformed. His consciousness seemed to have been cut into several pieces, turning upside down and in disorder. At the same time, he clearly sensed a cacophony. It was so discordant and ear-piercing. But in the next second, the vibration became smooth. It was as if someone was plucking the strings of a zither from the depths of the clouds. It was excessively deep, making it impossible to hear the true melody. But the smooth, graceful, and orderly vibration cut through the whistling clouds and astral winds. It transmitted into Luo Nan's soul, resonating with him. Luo Nan was stupefied for nearly 5 seconds before waking up, as if he had just woken up from a dream. He unleashed the senses of his soul, cloaked to lock onto Rue Wen's position, but there was nothing under his senses. Luo Nan's soul was about to freeze in that instant. Chapter 610. The region where the oscillation occurred was located 400 meters away. It was extremely easy to distinguish whether it was through mental senses or naked eye observation. Luo Nan could see that the surrounding clouds were roiling and opening up in that region. No matter how fiercely the astral winds pushed the clouds, they were unable to fill up the small, irregular cavity that was 3 meters in diameter. The cavity itself was like a hole that had been forcibly cut open. There were even a few warped threads of light hanging from it. This feeling of disorder extended out from the hole. The light in the surroundings of the cavity was clearly warped, suffused with a faint scarlet light. It was a bit similar to the light that seeped through the gaps between the clouds, but it had a more substantial feeling. This formed a region that was clearly different from the surrounding void. It was indescribably strange. Luo Nin was a bit stupefied. His mental senses had turned into a mass of chaos after the hole was broken. It was like when he had just started out and encountered a powerful B-rank. The relevant region was disturbed into a complete mess, a vast expanse of fog. Moreover, this irregular cavity was rapidly shrinking at an obvious rate. When Luo Nan discovered it, it was approximately 3 meters in diameter. In the 1 second it took for him to rush over, it had already shrunk by at least a quarter. And the speed at which it was shrinking was growing faster and faster. What was that? Luo Nan's mind was a mess. There were only questions and no answers. And at this time, his other sensing method, his sealed system, grasped the whereabouts of Rue 1, the unfixed star. She was on the other side. She was within the hollow region. That was the best answer. The irregular cavity continued to shrink. Luo Nin simply didn't think of anything else. His water vapor figure flashed, and he directly passed through the hole, throwing himself into the boundless and immeasurable cavity. A thought flashed through Luo Nan's mind the instant he entered the cavity. Was I too impulsive? The tiny stray thoughts were completely drowned out by the treacherous and oppressive scene before his eyes in the blink of an eye. The pressure within this irregular cavity was extremely astonishing. The water vapor figure formed by the interference of his soul body evaporated into nothingness the instant he entered the cavity. Luo Nin nimbly withdrew all forms of mental and material interference, but he soon discovered that it really was like he had crashed into a region covered in fog. Everything was a vast expanse of gray. What about the light outside? Before Luo Nin could get used to it, countless twisted and complex structural fragments stimulated his mental senses. It didn't matter if they were meaningful or meaningless, understandable or incomprehensible, willing or unwilling to receive, they all transformed into an immeasurably terrifying flow of information. They flowed along the sensory channels he habitually spread out, and they were fed back one after another. They poured into his soul, filling it to the point where it was off the charts. Structural fragment? Luo Nan was only able to extract this abstract word from the chaotic and berserk information. Then he was smashed into stupefaction by the devastating impact of the information. Under this assault, Luo Nan's sensing range was compressed and compressed, refined and refined, shielded and shielded, but he was still unable to resist the pressure of the terrifying flow of information. In the blink of an eye, the range of his spiritual senses had shrunk to less than 3 meters in diameter, and it was still shrinking. He felt so dizzy that he even lost control of his out-of-body soul until he hit a seemingly gray, tangible barrier. Luo Nin woke up with a start. This gray and hazy barrier looked like a curtain that was pieced together from countless messy fabrics at first glance. It was even like a wall of fog that didn't have any substance. But when Luo Nin truly came into contact with it, he was able to sense that it was a special creation that was formed from countless complex and chaotic structures. Luo Nan's perception and thoughts had already been severely warped and compressed. He was temporarily unable to distinguish what this thing was, but he was able to sense the extremely unstable and tyrannical energy vortex above it. It was because of this inadvertent collision that a berserk energy violently surged out from this barrier of unknown origins. His soul body nearly melted within the powerful magnetic field and was consigned to eternal damnation. Even Luo Nan's soul body was stiff. He was barely able to keep his soul from scattering within the powerful and chaotic magnetic field. He slowly adjusted the direction of his thoughts and perception. The essence of the soul body's observation was mental sensing, and Luo Nan himself controlled many types of sensing, ranging from the low end to the high end. He went from constantly interfering with the material plane to pure observation that didn't interfere at all. Luo Nan fully deserved to be called the top master of mental sensing in the inner world. But here, within this gray and hazy mist, Luo Nan was able to switch between many types of observation within this extremely limited space. He piled up the results of his perception observation layer by layer, but the situation before his eyes still didn't have any essential changes. In other words, he was already lost within this gray and hazy maze of fog of unknown origin. F***ck me. Luo Nan couldn't hold back from cursing. Right now, he couldn't care about anything else. He just wanted to know where Rue One was in such a vile environment. Was she all right? Venting his anger was a bit beneficial. Quite a bit of the fretful and fearful elements had been dumped out, and his mind became a bit more clear. More importantly, he looked within his mind and confirmed once more that Rue One star was still within the sealed system. It was radiating a scorching splendor. Her specific location. Huh, she's so close. Luo Nan and Rue Wen's consciousness completed an even higher level of connection at this moment. Luo Nan subconsciously called out, Rue One. The dusky mist barrier in front of Luo Nan was the strange creation barrier that nearly caused Luo Nan to melt within the powerful magnetic field. It suddenly fluctuated, and its entire structure seemed to be collapsing. Its density dropped at a rapid pace, and then it collapsed and dispersed into a mass of misty smoke. Luo Nan confirmed that there was a buzzing, vibrating sound ringing out in front of him. Countless meaningful and meaningless structural fragments were being unfastened and unhooked. Some of them disintegrated without a sound. Some of them were dragging along faintly discernible electric flames. They were even like blades grinding against each other. The area in front of him was still dangerous enough to make one shiver with fear. But there was a slender figure in the depths of the gray and hazy mist, going from blurry to clear. She gradually approached until she arrived in front of him. Rue One. Luo Nan instinctively reached out to touch her, but he forgot that his water vapor human form had already collapsed. He touched nothing in an instant. In the end, Rue One still stopped incomparably real before his eyes. Her cheeks were fine, but the clothes on her shoulders, chest, waist, legs, and other areas were inexplicably torn, especially the area above her left knee. There was a piece of cloth that simply disappeared, revealing the fine white and powerful muscles of her leg. Rue One seemed to know that she had gotten herself into trouble. She buried her head even deeper. Only now did Luo Nan discover that it was his turn to get angry when he saw her in this state. But in this mist maze where danger lurked on every side, he saw Rue One standing alive and well before him. There was no emotion that could compare to the joy of reunion, so he was completely unable to find the dignity of a parent. He could only ask over and over again, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Rue One shook her head almost imperceptibly. Then she whispered, "It's too deep. I can't reach it." Chapter 611. There are many layers here. They affect each other. And then? Traveling through space will cause interference. The resonance frequency must form a concordant interval in order to eliminate it. Concordant interval? Luo Nan and Rue One spent quite a bit of effort to communicate. The little girl's ability to express herself was a bit problematic. Her vocabulary was limited. It was probably because she had recently learned the guitar from Moya. She even interspersed proper terms from the field of music. In the end, Luo Nan had a superficial understanding of music theory. He knew that the concordant interval was a musical interval that sounded pleasing to the ear. It was a musical relationship that was relatively harmonious in the auditory impression. Rue One made an analogy. For the time being, Luo Nan didn't know whether it was appropriate or not. He understood the gist of it. You're saying that the resonance frequency of your body and soul fusion must form a harmonious relationship with a multi-layered structure of space and time. Just like the chord of the guitar, in order to guarantee precision, Rue when furrowed her eyebrows. It's not enough. Why? Hold on. Let me guess. You just said that it's too deep. I can't reach it. Are you saying that there are too many layers of the structure of space and time? It's like a guitar doesn't just have 6 strings, but 16, 17, or even more. It's super complicated to completely control it. It's impossible to play a tune. The metaphors of the two could be said to be a mess, but this kind of communication method was actually quite useful. Rue gaped. Perhaps she lacked confidence in her ability to express herself. In the end, she just nodded her head lightly, indicating that this was what she meant. Excellent. Excellent. Luo Nan's doubts were resolved. Plus, Rue was perfectly fine before his eyes. Luo Nan felt much more at ease. His mind spun all the more nimble, and his train of thought became clearer. In the current situation, he needed to ensure that he and Rue were safe and sound. He needed to determine where in the world this misty labyrinth was. He also needed to figure out why such a situation would appear in the cloud world. The normal structure of space and time had yet to be penetrated. There was a layer of logic hidden within. It could be seen that the cloud world itself was abnormal. The cloud world. Luo Nan wasn't the least bit surprised to encounter this scene. He discovered early on that the cloud world was completely different from the local space and time of Earth. The first stop of the Soul Cloak's expansion was the cloud world, half a month ahead of Earth. But now, the Soul Cloak was about to cover the entire Earth, while the cloud world had yet to be touched. In Luo Nan's understanding, the cloud world was like an infinite replication of the misty scene. It formed an incomparably vast maze. Now, although he had stumbled into another fog maze and felt that it was also full of danger, compared to the surface phenomenon that he could not figure out at all, there seemed to be more opportunities and starting points for him to explore. Rue 1. Do what you did just now. Rue 1 was becoming more and more obedient right now. She would do whatever Luo Nan said. Under Luo Nan's command, she displayed her technique once more. It was as if she was playing a guitar. She gently plucked at the incorporeal chords in the void, clearing a temporary passageway within the dusky mist. The essence of what the little girl was doing was still based on the foundation of body and soul. She resonated with the structure of the void and achieved the unity of the inside and the outside. However, during this process, she adopted a more advanced and exquisite technique. She found fragments that could resonate harmoniously in space-time structures of different frequencies and avoided the relevant conflicts. Thus, she opened up a passage in the complicated structure environment. Unfortunately, the passage was drowned out by the surrounding fog in less than 2 or 3 breaths. Well done. Luo Nan didn't care how long the passage lasted or where it led. Instead, he seized the opportunity to fiercely praise Rue 1. No matter what, he had to pull the little girl out of her depressed and remorseful mood first. Moreover, Rue 1's miraculous methods really did give Luo Nan a good entry point. It also gave him a gap to catch his breath. Luo Nan had yet to condense his water vapor human form under the ever-present pressure of the misty maze. He could only barely maintain the narrow range of his mental senses. This lasted until Rue 1 plucked the cords and the mist before his eyes dispersed. The surrounding pressure clearly loosened and dropped. Luo Nan finally found an opportunity. He shouted to himself, This I was not the I from before. The form, sound, and meaning didn't match. But Luo Nan's goal was clear. He borrowed this chance to visualize the mysterious I character. His mind naturally congregated. Then he used the pure observation mode to comb and adjust his mental senses anew. He reestablished the large coordinate system. He slowly but surely seeped into the impermanent gathering and scattering mist. He recalled his previous experiences, including today's observations and the results of his earlier observations. He formed a basic judgment regarding the logic and mysteries of the misty maze and even the cloud world. This place is the accumulation of many configuration fragments. Ruewen looked at him attentively. The distance between the mental plane and the material plane did not affect her clairvoyance. She was like a well-behaved elementary school student, earnestly listening to her teacher's lecture. Luonin felt a bit ashamed. He had only been able to strip away the clues within by relying on Ruewen's miraculous methods. What he was doing right now was nothing more than a theoretical derivation and conclusion. Luonin continued to observe the changes in the misty maze, especially the dissociation, friction, and reconstruction of those shattered structures in the depths of the mist. These were the configuration fragments he speculated about. They were like countless catkins floating in the air. They came and went with the wind, hugging together randomly to form all sorts of hairy balls. It was just that the internal structure mechanism was hundreds of millions of times more complex. Due to its complexity, a portion of this random structure process was successful. Perhaps it was meaningful. There was also a considerable portion that failed. Perhaps it was meaningless. But regardless of whether these structures were meaningful or meaningless, they all seemed to revolve and pile up under some sort of mechanism. They formed a boundless misty environment of varying thicknesses and densities. Even the density was different. Then this complex maze was constructed. And if one were to push a layer deeper, the misty maze is like this. Perhaps the cloud world outside is like this as well. It's just that its operations are more concealed. If it weren't for your fleshly body traveling through the void and causing a huge commotion, you wouldn't have been able to see through this layer of cover. I couldn't see through it. Gongqi also couldn't see through it. Ruewen stared fixedly at him. Her appearance made Luonin want to reach out and stroke her hair. Unfortunately, he was unable to do so for the time being. He could only continue to reason. In this way, we can make a hypothesis. This misty maze is an even deeper region of the cloud world. If the cloud world is a display, a projector, an output that is like a scene between reality and fantasy, then this place might be the mainframe. The wiring and whatnot looks extremely messy, but if we follow the clues and search, we will always find the CPU. Am I right? Ruewen was silent. Her brows were even slightly furrowed. It seemed that she was doing her best to understand and ponder. She looked extremely cute. Chapter 6:12. There's something? It's only normal to have something. Since this misty labyrinth was the host, possessing its own operating laws and rules, then it was normal to have a CPU hidden deep within. However, Luonin was unable to guess what the CPU looked like. He asked Ruewen, but he did not receive an accurate answer. Ruewen just shook her head. I can't see it. It's normal that you can't see it. Luonin's large coordinate system was doing its best to expand its range, but its progress was still slow. It had not expanded beyond 10 meters to this day. This was the law of order of the misty labyrinth. It suppressed the external order frame with Luonin at its core. Luonin was mentally prepared for this. He just asked Ruewen in passing, "How far can you see?" Ruewen did not immediately respond. Instead, she furrowed her brows once more. It seemed that this simple answer exceeded the scope of her ability to express herself. Yes. Is the environment very complicated? Luonin was a bit surprised at first, but he soon reacted. Ruewen's ability to express herself was a bit bad, but she certainly had no problems with basic concepts like length and distance. The misty labyrinth's complexity was certainly beyond imagination for her to be able to make things difficult for him. Sure enough, Ruewen quickly nodded. Oh, the eyes are the most important prerequisite. Ever since Luonin entered the inner world, he had always used his mental senses first. He had the advantage of information, and he had been successful in every endeavor. Now that he was affected, he would be out of sorts. His thoughts naturally turned in this direction. Of course, the reason why he was thinking this way was because he already had a decision in mind. Luonin saw that Ruewen did not quite understand his meaning, so he explained the current situation of the large coordinate system being suppressed. He also took the opportunity to explain how he should deal with it. Luo Nan would feel that he had lost out if he did not properly utilize such an outstanding listener. It's not enough to rely solely on the large coordinate system to solve this problem. The basic mode of operation of my large coordinate system is to use my own order frame as the standard. I use my own extraordinary domain to forcefully replace the natural order of other space-time structures. It's fine if it's purely observation. It's nothing more than a label conversion. But if I carry out mental and material interference, it's the same as going head-on against the order of the entire space-time structure. However, in actual operation, we can use more advanced and ingenious methods to bypass this obstacle. Do you know what that method is? Luo Nim was about to announce the answer, but he didn't expect Rue when to actually open her mouth and answer after a short period of thought. Coupling. All right. Luo Nim was both happy and surprised. How did you guess? You said it before. I said it before. Luo Nan's mind spun a few times. He finally remembered that he had given Rue a proper introduction to the subtleties of coupling theory before he entered the cloud world. At that time, he was only half venting and did not expect Rue to fully understand. However, it seemed that Rue already had a basic understanding of coupling theory. When how? He when yang. When God. When not to. When to one. When like. It was based on a controllable order frame. Through effective design, it would form a coupling with multiple other order frames to form a set of gears to guide the direction of power. To put it simply, it's using order to guide order. According to the virtual brain system's explanation, this is a type of basic yet high-end configuration thinking. Luo Nan naturally entered a state of unceasing torrent when he spoke about this aspect of theory. At this time, he wasn't just giving Rue a lecture or showing off. Instead, he was seizing the opportunity to organize his thoughts. The laws of order in this misty maze are suppressing me greatly. But we have to see that it is still very straightforward compared to the cloud world outside and the local spacetime on Earth. Most of its pressure is on the surface. The interference and pressure of the misty maze was definitely far above the cloud world and the local spacetime. But from another perspective, purely using the controllability of the rules of order as the standard, the corresponding difficulty coefficient should be arranged like this from top to bottom. Local spacetime, cloud world, mist maze based on Luo Nan's current insight and knowledge. The structure of the local spacetime, where Earth was located, was established on the basis of organic unity between the extremely large macroscopic and the extremely small microscopic. Simply speaking, the intrinsic structure had already exceeded the scope of Luo Nan's perception. If it weren't for the magical effects of the mysterious character, in addition to the warping of the cloud world and local spacetime, Luo Nan might not have been able to produce an intuitive understanding of the corresponding structure. What's more, the structure of local spacetime was purely based on matter. It formed its own laws and rules. The position of extraordinary power was extremely awkward. Most of the time, Luo Nan was in a predicament of being like a mouse pulling a tortoise with nowhere to start. The cloud world was a bit better. At the very least, the space-time structure had faintly discernible traces of processing. It gave one the bare minimum of imagination. But if one really wanted to start, one would know just by looking at Gongqi's fate. In comparison, the mist maze displayed a scene. The mechanism and structure of the mist gathering and dispersing was admittedly exquisite and extraordinary, but the majority of its scale was still within the scope of Luo Nan's observation. The dust-like structure fragments clearly had a very close relationship with the CPU in the depths of the structure. This gave Luo Nan a very good entry point. Consider the self. Consider the environment. Consider the framework of compromise between the self and the environment. Whether it's in formatting theory, configuration theory. Fine, even on the level of traditional philosophy, this is one of the most essential rules. The difference lies in the specific implementation methods and methods. I've put quite a bit of effort into this recently. Luo Nim was still chattering on endlessly. He talked about how he would use coupling theory to build a fog lamp that was more suitable for long-distance observation on top of the soul cloak. Don't blame him for chattering. The The surrounding mist that gathered and dispersed irregularly, as well as the configuration fragments that formed the mist, revealed a myriad of shapes and forms. They gave him far too much stimulation and inspiration. Even though a considerable portion of these dust-like configuration fragments no longer possessed any structural significance, they still had an enormous base to support them. They still displayed astonishing diversity. Just from a range of 10 meters that Luo Nan was currently able to observe, a conservative estimate was that the number of flying, gathered, and dispersed configuration fragments would exceed 100 million. Even if the vast majority of them were destroyed, the remaining ones could be divided into at least 10 major categories, according to the discrimination theory of the virtual brain system. There were 300 to 400 specific structures, and there were countless variations. The more Luo Nan probed, the more he couldn't extricate himself. For a beginner like him, this was the most extensive and most vivid living example. He could verify, he could practice, and he could temper himself as a reference. With these examples, the concise and dry theoretical descriptions on the user's manual seemed to come alive. They could manifest on the plane of reality at any time. Chapter 613. Bang, bang, bang. The dull thuds were mixed with the man's rapid breathing. The inside of his lungs and the outside of his sweat were both evaporating and burning violently. Phew, the human body has always been a clumsy assemblage. The continuous heavy punches landed on the thick boxer target. Not only were they hitting the thick material, but they were also colliding with the aura of the young expert behind him, which was as heavy as a mountain. The rebounding force was almost suffocating. However, Black Wolf still wanted to speak. In a noisy environment, his voice was unconsciously getting louder, and his emotions became more and more agitated. Decades of cutting-edge research. It all proves this point, from the human body structure to genetic inheritance. You're a completely illogical ghost. Like, bang, bang, bang. Black Wolf's punches were faster and fiercer than the one before. His clash with the boxer target also became more intense. His exchange with his sparring partner was already close to a confrontation. The two of them changed their footwork and moved their bodies, exceeding the standard of boxing champions in the normal world. The sparring partner's head blocked behind the boxer target and replied in a muffled voice, "The physical side is not weaker than the mental side. Upper limit, upper limit." Black Wolf jumped to attack, but he grimaced because of the pain in his spine. His punches were a little weaker, but his voice was getting louder and louder. How can a lousy foundation build a skyscraper? It's still a barbaric growth period. In the near future, again. Look, enough, Brother Black Wolf. I've had enough for today. The sparring partner could not take it anymore, not with his fists, but with his emotions. He jumped back, indicating that he should rest for a while. Black Wolf's bare upper body was already steaming. Beads of sweat hung on his eyelids. He bent over and gasped for breath. He only raised his eyelids and looked at the young sparring partner in front of him who was stronger than him. Do you think that I look down on the physical side while I'm tired like a dog here? My words and actions don't match? No such thing. Shuele took off the boxer target and wiped the sweat on his face. Actually, our dojo master said something similar. Oh? Shuele smiled. Dojo master, you said that there's a limit to the human body, and you want me to come into contact with the exoskeleton technology to fully connect with the times. So, I came to this training center. Your dojo owner runs a dojo, right? Not bad. Not only are you adept at imparting martial arts, you also have such a way of thinking. Black Wolf also threw down his boxing gloves and ended the final practice. He got off the ring with Shuele. Actually, in ancient times, many traditional philosophies already had this understanding. Just like in Buddhism, it is said that the human body is a stinky skin bag. Isn't there a saying that goes, "Fill up the stinky skin bag all day long. When will the day come for transcendence and reach the shore?" For us cultivators, we mainly use it to overcome disasters and temper our minds. It's fine as long as it's enough. We can't hang on to this tree forever. If there's a chance, we can totally find another way. Shuele did not know how to respond. Black Wolf grinned, revealing his sharp canine teeth. At our level, immortal souls are no longer empty talk. It's still the same saying. The physical body is only the foundation for germination, not a cage to trap. So, I'm very open-minded now. When my injuries are more or less healed, I'll apply for a deep physical transformation to improve the physical body and the environment for my soul. Or, I should thank you. You're my benefactor who woke me up. No. Shuele was dizzy when a phone call came in. He secretly sighed and picked it up without even looking. But in the next moment, he suddenly froze on the spot and straightened his back even more. Auntie Luo. Oh, I'm not with Nanster right now. Ah, it's fine, it's definitely fine. Rue, one is also very familiar with them. It's definitely. I know she's with Nanster. Yes, don't worry, it's definitely fine. The phone call was quickly hung up. In just a few short sentences, Shuele's body was already drenched in sweat from his training. He subconsciously shivered. Oh my God, Black Wolf was a little puzzled. What's wrong? An elder is asking me about something. Wait a moment. Another phone call came in. This time, Shuele glanced at it. It was Xie Junping. Brother Ping. Ah, Annie Luo also called you? No wonder. Don't use me as an excuse. How would I know where Rue Wen went? That girl comes and goes like a ghost. Did she order breakfast from Sister Cat Eyes this morning? Then she must have gone to Gear. Okay, Gear is full of people right now. It's not convenient for Brother Chin and the others. I'll go over. Did you just come out from the orphanage? How about you take a turn and pick me up? I'm at the Exoskeleton Training Center in Trigate District. Okay, thanks a lot. I'll wait for you at the main entrance. After talking for a while, Shuele finally straightened out the situation. He turned his head and said, Brother Black Wolf, you see, I have something to do over here. Okay, you go. I'm almost done here. We'll talk later. Black Wolf was also smiling. His thin face was rather sunny. Shuele replied with a smile and took his leave. He hastily took a shower and took the free nutritious meal from the training center. He waited by the side of the road while eating. A few minutes later, he saw Xie Junping's phantom flying car drive over. The two were familiar with each other, so Shuele didn't regard himself as an outsider. He stuffed the nutritious meal into his mouth, puffed his cheeks, and helped open the door and get on the car. It was already nighttime by now. People were coming out from the training center one after another. Among them was Black Wolf's thin, tough, and valiant figure. The two called out to Black Wolf. Someone drove over to pick him up. They waited for him to get on the car, and Xie Junping drove away. Xie Junping casually asked, "Who was that?" Shuele swallowed the nutritious meal and said, a fellow member of the society. He came here for rehabilitation. In the past, how do I put it? It was pretty complicated. To put it simply, I was the main culprit who made him come here for rehabilitation. Huh. It was at the end of September when the human-faced arachnid disaster happened. Brother Black Wolf was a member of the operation team. He was careless and was controlled by a human-faced arachnid. It attacked Nanster, and I just happened to run into him. Shuele gave a general explanation of the situation at the time. Black Wolf was the most unlucky member of the operation team. His spine had been injured by Shuele in the fight in the elevator. He had only recently recovered and was undergoing rehabilitation. Shuele happened to follow the society's introduction and went to this training center to do exoskeleton training. The two sides met. "Oh, you beat him up like this. Wouldn't I take the opportunity to beat you to death?" I was in a hurry to save him. Besides, Brother Black Wolf is quite magnanimous. He's a bit. Sigh. What's wrong? Nothing. I just wanted to ask, Brother Ping, what do you think about the relationship between body and soul when you study and cultivate with Dean Wan? Forget it. It's useless to ask. Xie Junping laughed. Under the influence of Dean Wan, the order of creators he belonged to could be said to be the most staunch materialist. There was no place for pure spiritual bodies, such as souls. Of course, Xie Junping had not reached this level yet. He could only be regarded as a practical person. As long as he could cultivate extraordinary power, he had no other desires. Seeing that the topic was drifting toward cultivation, Xie Junping glanced at the rearview mirror and said, "The one behind, Black Wolf, right? His car has been following behind." "Are you sure?" We The order of creators must maintain a high sensitivity to all specific material structures. This car has been following us since we left the training center, and the distance hasn't changed. Could it be that Black Wolf wants to find a place to beat you up? Shuele laughed. Don't think too much. There's only one main road back to the city in the Tri-Gate district. We're not going back to the city, we're going to Acumen College. We've already switched to 2 city highways in the middle, and it's still following us. Although that was what they said, neither of them took it seriously. What happened behind them seemed to be fair and above board. Maybe it was just a coincidence? But half an hour later, they arrived at Acumen College and entered the underground parking area. Looking at the flying car behind them, they couldn't help but look at each other. Xie Junping gasped. He's not really here for revenge, right? Can I get out of here first? As they spoke, the car behind them pulled up. The window on one side opened, and Black Wolf waved at them. Lei, you're here too? Isn't it the weekend today? Shuele greeted them from behind Xie Junping. He couldn't help but be surprised. Brother Black Wolf, you guys are? Black Wolf grinned. Senior brother, and I took a private job from the Starry Sky Club, so we came over to take care of it. The senior brother Black Wolf spoke of was the person sitting in the driver's seat. He looked to be middle-aged. His hair was slightly gray, and he gave off a sense of vicissitudes. Apart from that, there were almost no other striking features. While He Lang was talking about himself, he nodded to Shui and Xie in acknowledgement. He looked calm and reserved, not the kind of person who liked to socialize. Everyone had things to do, so they didn't say much. They parked their cars and parted ways. Xie Junping and Shuele took the streetcar. The exit was near the South Bank Auditorium, so they could only walk for the rest of the journey. They hadn't even taken a few steps on the bridge when they heard a noise in the sky. Lights gathered and projected into the forest. It was a light transport plane that could take off and land vertically. It was specially used to transport equipment and supplies. Looking at the position where the transport plane was hovering, Shuele gasped. What's with this big scene? I have too much money to burn. Xie Junping was like an extreme hater of the rich, drawing Shuele's sidelong glance. Xie Junping continued to smirk. The more I work, the more I find these silk pants to be an eyesore. F*CK. It wasn't easy to build up this place, and now it's turned into a construction site. Xie Junping's feelings for gear could be said to be second only to Luo Nan's. This building had been cleaned and renovated twice, and he had been the one to do it each time. He hadn't even paid this much attention to his own house. Xie Junping couldn't help but feel uncomfortable seeing the fruits of his labor change beyond recognition. He mumbled to himself as he walked inside. He walked from the forest path to the small plaza in front of him. He was just about to enter the lobby when a shadow suddenly leaped past his feet, bringing with it a gust of wind. Chapter 614. The shadow suddenly came to an abrupt stop, and its plump body slid on the ground, leaving a long, wet mark. In the next second, Jerry, the muskrat that had already become Rue Wen's pet, plunged over and hugged Xie Junping's trousers with quite a bit of strength. Ouch, my pants, my shoes. No one knew where Jerry came from, but the fur on his body was half dry and half wet. He swung his long tail, causing the ground to crackle. He looked anxious and restless. Xie Junping said that he disliked it, but if he was really angry at it, he wouldn't have called it son. He and Jerry could be said to have gotten to know each other through a fight. Back then, they had fought for several days, and he hated this muskrat to the core. But later, this little thing was nowhere to be found. When it appeared again, it had already transformed into Rue Wen's pet. This was how people felt. The same target, but when looked at from a different perspective, the original torturous became nimble. The problem was that Jerry was quite aloof and cold. He was someone who would look at the dishes on a plate. Aside from beauties like Rue Wen, Luo Nan, and Cat Eyes, he loved to ignore everyone else. It was unprecedented for him to look for someone to back him up so impatiently and impatiently. Xie Junping was amused. Hee, you only think of me when there's something. Who provoked my son? While he was playing with it, an elevator went down to the lobby. A group of people went out and happened to meet Xie Junping and the others. The one in the lead was young and had a baby face. However, His eyes were filled with sharpness. When he saw Xie Junping, his attitude was subtle. "Senior Xie, are you here to supervise again?" Xie Junping looked up and smiled, then lied through his teeth. "Brother O, it's not like that. I'm just taking a walk to digest my food." The younger brother O was au Quebec. He had just entered his first year of university, but he was already a senior figure in the Mysterious Arts Research Society. He was also a technical expert in the society, and he was quite accomplished in the research of the mysterious arts. Some time ago, the Mystical Research Society was in a mess. The former president, Du Yong, had resigned, and the team was restructured. OK had become the youngest vice president, especially after the successful capital injection of LRCF. In a series of equity changes, his family's company became one of the top 5 major shareholders of the club. With this capital, this young man's voice in the club was very powerful. No one liked to be told what to do, especially by young and vigorous people. OK had always been rude to Xie Junping did not expect to be on good terms with everyone. Furthermore, the person in front of him was 5 to 6 years younger than him. There was no need for him to go against her forcefully. Otherwise, he would be seen as a bully. He casually replied, then smiled and asked, "Shall we call it a day?" The corner of OK's mouth twitched. On the contrary, everyone is burning the midnight oil. Xie Junping was quite surprised. "Is it that urgent?" OK ignored him and walked straight out. The group of people behind him also followed him, looking rather imposing. It was a good thing that Xie Junping was in Acumen College. He had scoundrels and dogs everywhere. He casually stopped the person behind him. "Old Hai, what's going on?" Old Hai, who had been stopped, was someone who knew how to curry favor. His position in the Mystic Arts Research Society was neither high nor low, and he was also one of Xie Junping's eyes and ears. He immediately said, "It's very urgent. They say that they want to smash all the ice on the lake tonight." Lake? Xie Junping and Shui Lei didn't understand. OK, who had been in front, was very dissatisfied with his own subordinate and an outsider in private. He turned his head and retorted, "Senior Xie, this has nothing to do with who you're supervising, right?" Xie Junping was not angry when he said this, but Jerry, who was under his feet, became even more irritable. It bared its teeth at OK and even let out a strange squeak. OK glanced at the little thing. "It's freezing outside. Senior, you should stay in the house and see if there are any areas that violate the rules. When you have time, you can give her pet a vaccine. Also, carry it far away so that it doesn't get eaten by the cat." With that, he walked out of the hall with large strides. Xie Junping was still not angry. Instead, he vaguely grasped a certain important point. At that moment, he didn't care about Jerry's half-wet fur. He bent down and reached out to carry the chubby little fellow in his arms. He chased after her with a cheeky smile. "With my son's skills, 1 or 2 stray cats are nothing. Speaking of which, old brother O, are you going to break the ice on the opposite side of the lake? Are you preparing to go winter swimming?" OK did not want to answer such a stupid question. In the end, Old Hai gave the answer. "It just so happens to be the other way around. The society wants to hold a flame ritual." "Lighting a fire? Lighting a fire on water?" Xie Junping's eyelids twitched. He and Shui Lei glanced at each other. At the same time, they thought of the withered tree sandbar that stood alone in the middle of the lake. Shui Lei sucked in a breath of cold air. He couldn't help but open his mouth to ask, but Xie Junping gave him a meaningful glance. He wanted him to first confirm Luo Nan and Rue Wen's state. Xie Junping continued to ask OK with a thick face, "Brother O, the water fire is quite innovative, but lighting a fire in the middle of a jungle is a bit of a procedural problem. You don't mind having a discussion, right?" OK shot him a cold glance. He wanted to curse, but he still remembered Xie Junping's position in the student council. The corner of his mouth twitched. "OK, it just so happens that a professional team has arrived. We don't need to go through the procedures again." At this time, there were already people coming down from the transport aircraft. They unloaded the equipment and made the preliminary preparations. It looked like it was indeed, as OK said. It was a professional team. The Mystical Research Society was willing to pay the capital. They really did have a capital. Xie Jinping shot them a glance and chuckled. Fine, then we'll have a discussion on the spot. Actually, there was no need for a formal discussion. Xie Jinping and his gang of scoundrels could get a general idea of what was going on. Oh, hi. Are you guys playing with water turning into oil? Old Hai was stuck in the middle, feeling quite awkward. He could only chuckle. It's the reconstruction and deduction of a mysterious ritual. Mysterious ritual? Shuelei was even more surprised. Okay was really impatient. Senior Xie, you're a supervisor. There's no need to include the details of our society's activities, right? Everyone has a curious heart. Xie Jinping was still laughing. Old Hai, who was familiar with Xie Jinping, was shocked by his shamelessness. To put it bluntly, this was the result of him getting to know Luo Nan and following Dean Wan to train. Ever since he experienced the magnificence and wonders of the inner world, he looked at the little problems in a corner of Acumen College. His attitude was completely different. In the end, OK was still young. He was extremely annoyed by Xie Jinping's shameless pestering, but he couldn't find a reason to turn hostile. He simply turned his head and ignored Xie Jinping. At this time, Old Hai could only continue to be responsible for explaining. We want to reconstruct and reproduce the elusive secret ritual. You've heard of this, right? So what if you look down on me? Don't forget, my best friend is a member of your society. Our school's student council has always been concerned about the direction of the society's activities. Xie Jinping had already completed his search at the speed of light as he spoke. The elusive secret ritual was one of the most famous and ancient mysterious rituals of the West. Some people say that it originated in the 19th century BC. It was fused with religious mythology during the ancient Greek era to obtain a stronger vitality. Through the stimulation of the search results, Xie Jinping had a faint impression of it. There was an introduction to it in the History of Religion course. Luonan seemed to have mentioned it some time ago. Old Hai continued to explain. He said that the Mystic Arts Research Society was preparing to reproduce this mysterious ritual in gear on the North Bank. Of course, they weren't just copying it. In fact, the details of this ritual had long since been buried in the dust of history. If they wanted to reproduce it, they could only reconstruct it creatively. Oh, great ambition. Xie Jinping expressed his admiration out of politeness. Old Hai cast a glance forward and saw that OK had walked far away. He giggled and spoke in a strange tone. Yeah, under the stimulation of male hormones, it's strong and straight. Old Hai smiled mysteriously. Speaking of which, Director Xie, you're no longer on the same level as us Ivory Tower people. This year, will there be, he drew a circle around the bracelet on his wrist. Those who understood this hint would understand it. Those who didn't would be confused. Fortunately, Xie Jinping was a first-rate veteran. He immediately raised his eyebrows. A banquet. Old Hai gave him a thumbs up. They're getting better and better at fooling little kids. Only after saying this did he remember that there were even younger participants this year. It was Xie Jinping himself who, after making a difficult decision, refused the opportunity to participate in the banquet for the first time in his life. This was because his cultivation was at a critical juncture. He could foresee a qualitative change in his life not too far away. Those excessively straightforward conquest games no longer possessed a strong attraction. He would not tell Old Hai such words. He only revealed a smile. Old Hai was not surprised at all. He took the opportunity to tell him what he had heard. I heard that this year, it's also the theme of mysticism. Many people in our circle have won the lottery. What does this have to do with your reconstruction of the elusive ritual? It has a lot to do with it. Vice President O is preparing for this. He wants to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Did he go in the wrong direction? With the way things are over there, mysticism is just a gimmick. At the end of the day, it's still a matter of men and women. Old Hai chuckled. That should be right. I heard that he has already invited President Tang to be his female companion. This is the stepping stone. President Tang? Tangy? Xie Jinping was really shocked. Damn, they're almost 10 years apart. This kid is into this kind of thing? Could it be true love? There's still a backup. Our hibiscus flower. Fei Jin, Isn't she about to graduate? I understand. It's indeed true love. He had just come of age and was already in such a hurry to expose his taste. This kid was still immature. In comparison, the other younger one seemed to be about the same. He was overthinking. He was overthinking. I still have to sort out the logic here. The banquet isn't going to be held here. Old High was surprised. You don't know? This year's main venue is set to be at Cloud City Water Village. A bunch of lively people are preparing to freeload on the periphery. Xie Junping had already let the cat out of the bag. Old High did not think too much about it. He was just envious. This is a university town. Is there a better place to party and hunt? We can open up a second battlefield at any time. At that time, the entire Pingjiang district will be covered. This group of scum is getting more and more arrogant. Xie Junping spat. His heart was itching. Fortunately, he immediately remembered Dean Wan's teachings. He recited the words material nature is supreme to settle his mind. Chapter 6:15. Before Xie Junping could figure out what was going on, Jerry struggled to jump out from his arms. It slithered down to the ground like a wisp of smoke. It crossed the dense barrier of trees with a few steps and leaped onto the surface of the lake. It didn't care about the different layers of ice on the surface of the lake. It dashed towards the center of the lake. Son, Jerry? Xie Junping didn't manage to catch it, nor did he call it back. He just watched helplessly as the muskrat disappeared into the darkness. Everyone is very busy. Senior Xie, can't you go somewhere else to walk your pet? Okay's tone was becoming more and more unkind. Young people always cared more about other people's evaluations. Okay didn't hear the conversation between Xie Junping and Old High clearly, but he subconsciously felt that it wasn't anything good. He just wanted this eyesore to get the hell out of here. The problem was that no matter how mischievous Xie Junping was and how humble he was, Xie Junping wasn't afraid of Quebec. Xie Junping acted as if he hadn't heard anything and walked 2 steps forward to the lakeside. He stared blankly at the surging lake water between the lakeside and the cracked layer of ice. Jerry, this little thing, when the world was going on. There was also the tremor just now. At first he thought it was an earthquake, but then he felt that it wasn't like it. This was because the source of the tremor was too shallow and too close from the perspective of physical perception. After a rough calculation of the location, it seemed like Luo Nan's worrisome. Xie Junping let his imagination run wild by the lakeside. Okay didn't get a response, so his mood worsened. Unfortunately, he couldn't really shed all pretense of cordiality. He could only suppress his anger and give an order to the captain of the engineering team beside him. The de-icing operation and the subsequent anti-freezing measures are your specialties. It's your job. However, we have very high requirements for the operation. All operations must conform to our pre-designed ideas. It was hard for him to not be in a good mood. However, the engineering captain knew that this was a big client. Anything could be discussed if there was money to be made. He chuckled in response. This afternoon, the engineering team used integrated mapping equipment to complete the topography of the lake area. They had also received the Mystic Arts Research Society's blueprints. They pulled them out and communicated with OK and the others on a few specific issues. Xie Junping saw this scene. This was what he wanted to know. He rushed over to take a look. There were rigorous and neat engineering drawings, and there were also mysterious magic arrays. If it were a month ago, Xie Junping would have seen his brain explode when he was faced with the structures and symbols of mysticism that represented special images. But right now, under the influence of Dean Wan's fundamental studies of matter properties, even if he did not know much about some of the special symbols, he could basically guess 60 to 70% of them by observing their structure and direction. Of course, this was also because a group of amateurs had limited skills. As he watched, Xie Junping's expression became serious. Soon, a smile appeared on his face, and he moved closer to Quebec. Younger O. OK was so annoyed that he didn't even bother to show basic courtesy. He gritted his teeth and said, "Do you even want to check the construction qualification?" No need, no need. The Mystical Research Society had always been dependable. Actually, during this period of time, I've also begun to be interested in mysticism. I've also done some research in private. OK looked at him with a gaze that said, "Are you kidding me?" Xie Jinping winked at him and slid his hand on the projection of the design drawings. From the design drawings, this is a combination of magic arrays. It's not complete enough. It might be a problem with the level. Seeing OK sneer, Xie Jinping immediately continued, but it might also be because it needs to be coordinated with the mysterious ritual in time. If it can really be activated, I think that the extraordinary, the direction of magic power should be from the four sides of the lake to the center of the lake. The final destination is the withered tree sandbank. Am I right? OK subconsciously looked at old Hai, who had shrunk back. He told you. Xie Jinping laughed and continued to communicate. In terms of the overall structure of this set of drawings, does it lack a point of qualitative change? This time, OK was really shocked. You really know? No, I was just blindly thinking. I thought that if I could see it with my eyes, there would definitely not be such a big mistake with so many professionals like you. Of course not. OK still gave a certain amount of respect to professionals. He reached out and pointed at the center of the lake in the dark. We will use flame to represent sublimation. The qualitative change will happen after the withered tree is ignited. Sure enough, kids nowadays are so stubborn. When Xie Jinping thought about the secret space in the withered tree and the rabid dog that could fly into a rage at any moment, he felt that it was not a good thing to watch the young man seek his own death. He wanted to earn some merit from the living. Junior brother, the Holistic Research Society is indeed full of wonderful ideas. But about the burning of the tree, we need to talk about it. OK looked at him warily. Senior Xie, you don't know much about our society's activities, so there is no need to say some things. You also know nothing about the terror of some people. Since he had grasped the situation, Xie Jinping stopped smiling and stared at OK. Brother, no matter what activity it is, it must conform to the rules of the game. OK had long wanted to shed all pretense of cordiality. Hearing this, he sneered again. Are you talking about the school's approval? The school office, the student council, the parent-teacher conference, including the society office that Senior Xie is in. If there are any missing procedures, feel free to mention it. If there is one missing, the project will be immediately dropped. But if you can't find it, don't talk nonsense here. When it came to procedures, Xie Jinping really choked. For a big society like the Mystic Arts Research Society, they had honed their skills in all kinds of materials and procedures. It was not easy to find loopholes, and it was even more difficult to say anything in a short period of time. While he was choking, OK turned to the others around and shouted, "Listen up, the society's task is very important. Before Christmas Eve, the layout of this place must be completed and internal experiments must be carried out at least 3 times. Otherwise, the opening of the activity week will be a messy scene, and we will only be able to clean up the mess. Keep your eyes open for the next 2 days. Don't let those irrelevant people come and cause trouble. If you encounter any troublemakers, tell them to get lost." This was not just pointing at the mulberry tree, but scolding the locust tree. It was basically scolding Xie Jinping. And among the society members that OK brought, there were very few wily old foxes like old Hai. Most of them were newbies who had just entered the society, or perhaps they had long been aware of this. They had been working like cows and horses for the society for many years. Each and every one of them responded to the vice president's admonishment without end. They behaved extremely obediently, setting off OK's imposing manner. Xie Jinping cursed OK in his mind for not recognizing good intentions. He was just about to think of another method when a voice suddenly entered his ears. It was very familiar. If it wasn't for you tormenting me, I would probably be in the same state right now. The corner of Xie Jinping's eyes jumped. He turned his head to look and saw the crazy dog protecting his home that he had just cursed silently. He didn't know when, but he was already not far behind Xie Jinping. He was leaning against the shore of the lake, casting his gaze very calmly. "Are you a ghost? What did you get here?" Just now. Only now did Xie Jinping understand the meaning of Luo Nan's words just now. Luo Nan was probably talking about the unforeseen event that happened on the day they first met. Luo Nan brushed shoulders with the Mystic Arts Research Society, but he had an even better opportunity. "Yeah, you want to thank me. Xie Jinping was just about to tease Luo Nan when he saw Luo Nan's overly calm gaze. His heart twitched a bit. Speaking of which, Luo Nan was a master of perception that was publicly acknowledged throughout the world. Even if they were in the underground laboratory, this bit of distance was completely meaningless to him. And from multiple channels of information, Luo Nan seemed to be getting more and more used to using his fists to solve problems. Could it be that a murder was going to happen at Gear tonight? He subconsciously wanted to ease the atmosphere. Let's not get angry with a child. Hey, you came out wearing this? Xie Jinping suddenly noticed that Luo Nan's upper body was only wearing a thin shirt despite the freezing weather. There was the school badge of Acumen College on his chest. We're all awakened this willful. Luo Nan went, oh. It seemed that he was completely indifferent to the bitter cold weather. At the same time, he was completely indifferent to what was happening at the shore of the lake. This wasn't right. Xie Jinping was a bit stupefied. He subconsciously wanted to find more evidence, but he turned his head and saw Shui lay not far away. There was also Rui Wen, the person they were looking for. Oh, wasn't the jacket that the little girl was wearing Luo Nan's? He couldn't see anything else clearly due to the dim lighting. From the looks of it, could it be that she accidentally fell into the water? Xie Jinping didn't have the time to think too much at this moment. Okay had finished venting his temper at the group of laborers, and he saw a few more people appear at the shore of the lake. It must be known that he had just said that he was going to get rid of the miscellaneous people. Wasn't this a slap to his face? Okay's baby face turned green. He was just about to open his mouth to berate Luo Nan. Luo Nan suddenly walked up to him. Vice President, as a member of the society, I wish to express my opinion. Xie Jinping cried out his mind. Oh no. Okay was stunned for a moment. Only now did he clearly see Luo Nan's face. Luo Nan was more or less a celebrity figure in the Mystic Arts Research Society. Everyone knew that he had borrowed someone else's identity to enter the society. Not to mention his ability, his connections were certainly solid. Okay's brain spun for a while before he realized that Luo Nan and Xie Jinping were on the same side from the start. But during this moment of stupefaction, Luo Nan had already continued speaking. I participated in the reconstruction of the basic design of the Eleusis mystic apparatus. I also analyzed and calculated the basic framework of the Star of David. I didn't consider supernatural powers at the time, or perhaps I should say the problem of magical powers. It doesn't have the capacity to carry this. It's impossible to go from 0 to 1. It's even more impossible to sublimate from 1 to 100. If the Star of David is still the key structure of the mystic apparatus, then there's no need for us to waste our efforts. What nonsense are you spouting? Okay instinctively berated. But when he saw Luo Nan's eyes in the darkness, he felt an indescribable emptiness in his heart. His voice dropped 2 octaves. How laughable. The final structure optimization was guided by a true master of the mystic arts. Then did the master advise you that this is just a dazzling trick at most? It's more suitable for amusing people indoors. It's not something that can be piled up into a different result by simply enlarging the scale. The one who spoke these words was not Luo Nan. Instead, it was a young woman with a rather pleasant voice. However, the most eye-catching thing was that the newcomer approached from afar. When she arrived at the lakeside, she went directly to Luo Nan's side. She gently pulled on the crook of Luo Nan's arm and kissed him. Luo Nan's brows furrowed for a moment. Okay looked as if he had been struck by lightning. His baby face was flushed red with shame and indignation. Even his voice became sharp. Senior Sister Fei. Xie Jinping shivered. In an instant, the lakeside seemed to have entered the filming location of a third-rate melodrama. The atmosphere of the early stages completely collapsed. Chapter 6:16. Now, in the lakeside area, Okay was undoubtedly the most worried one. Not only had he suffered a blow to his reputation, but he had also been fatally denied in his profession. Black Wolf's experienced senior brother was the master of mysticism that he had mentioned. Although he didn't know what was going on, he had appeared with Fei Jean and endorsed her. This had already caused the young and promising vice president, OK, to suffer his first major failure in life. Xie Junping couldn't bear to look at OK's current appearance. He was also worried that this fellow would say some stupid words and do stupid things after being provoked over and over again. Xie Junping pulled Luo Nen along the lakeside and walked a bit further away, eliminating the greatest variable in this place. Luo Nen allowed OK to pull him along. It seemed that Luo Nen didn't have any special feelings towards Quebec. Luo Nen felt that OK was a bit absent-minded. Luo Nen's gaze was cast towards the dark depths of the lake, but it was unfocused. Where did you and Ruewen go? Researching a difficult problem. Even electromagnetic waves can't penetrate it? Annie Luo called me and Shuele. By the way, aren't you going to cultivate in seclusion alone? Only now did Luo Nen roll his eyes. I can't handle this by myself. Aren't you adjusting the exoskeleton? It looks good to me. Other than that, what else is there to do? At this time, Shuele and Ruewen also came over and stood together with them. Xie Junping was only able to clearly see what Ruewen was wearing when he got closer. Not to mention anything else, just those torn trousers and exposed snow-white leg muscles made him suck in a breath of cold air. He didn't dare to say anything else. Luo Nen turned to Ruewen and said, "You've been tormented quite a bit today. Go home and rest. Oh, you were a little exhausted just now. Don't walk by yourself. Let Brother Ping send you back." Xie Junping's train of thought was a bit erratic, and his reaction was half a beat slower. Before he could even open his mouth to reply, Ruewen had already shook her head. "I can still continue." Luo Nen refused her. "There's no need to take risks. Plus, today's harvest is enough for me to properly digest and absorb for a while." Junior Nan. Someone opened their mouth to greet him, cutting into Luo Nan's small circle. Oh, Senior Fei. The one who spoke was none other than Fei Jean. This girl, who had just made a dazzling entrance, abandoned the disgraced OK and walked over with a smile. She wanted to extend her hand and hook Luo Nan's arm like before, but Luo Nan's indifferent gaze stopped her. Clearly, he was not prepared to continue having intimate actions with her. He wasn't even prepared to say thank you. Fei Jean was good at socializing, and because of that, she was good at reading people. Her first contact with Luo Nan's gaze was enough for her to know that her social target tonight lacked patience. Forcefully starting a conversation would only backfire on her. As for the matter of helping just now, there is no need to even mention it. Why would a top-notch genius of the inner world need someone else's help to stand up for him? Therefore, Fei Jean didn't have any thoughts of being arrogant. Her friendly approach didn't work, so she immediately lowered her posture even more. She put her palms together and carefully begged, "I might have been a little abrupt just now. It's not easy for me to meet you, so I have something that I would like to ask for your help with." She didn't even wait for Luo Nen to ask. She immediately spoke, "I hope to be able to cooperate with Junior in this activity." Activities? The first thing that came to Luo Nan's mind was the Mystic Arts themed week event that would open next week. He had always had a dispensable attitude towards this. "Since it's a club activity, I'll definitely participate." "Junior brother, you've misunderstood. I meant the grand banquet party." Fei Jin's enunciation of the last few words was a bit indistinct, but at the same time, she raised her wrist. The virtual dial that seemed to interweave with garbled codes clearly indicated what she was referring to. Luo Nen frowned. Fei Jin put her palms together once more and made a small bow a few times. "Junior, this party is really important to me. The task of your male guests, interesting tattoos, focuses on quantity. But for us women, splendid communication focuses on quality. In that circle, you're the only one that I can find to collaborate with. You're the most outstanding one." A beautiful woman with an extraordinary appearance was cautiously begging for help. From a man's perspective, just the swelling feeling of satisfaction was already an enormous enjoyment. But Luo Nan's eyes didn't even blink. This continued until Fei Jin, who saw that the situation wasn't looking good, raised another condition. "If Junior can help me out at the party, the votes that I can gather from the Mystic Arts Research Society will all belong to you, Junior. I don't dare say anything else, but at the very least, I can save you quite a bit of trouble." Luo Nan's eyebrows twitched. This is fine. Such a straightforward attitude, caught Fei Jin off guard. She only came back to her senses after they added each other as friends. And by this time, Luonin had already directly said goodbye to her and invited her to leave. It was probably because Fei Jin rarely received this kind of treatment. It took a lot of effort for her to maintain her smile without fading. She just left in a bit of a hurry. Xie Junping watched from the side in a daze. Can these two be equal? That's not the point. Luonin didn't care whether Fei Jin had gone far or not. He minded his own thoughts and plans. There are too many things that need to be considered. I need to fix my sensing mode in the shortest amount of time possible. Whether it's the society or the feast, I need to save as much trouble as I can. It's better if I can push them off. Xie Junping didn't understand what fixing my sensing mode meant for a time, but he understood Luo Nan's perfunctory attitude towards Fei Jin. Then why did you agree? I didn't want to talk too much. Plus, she understands everything. Luo Nan's unspoken words were, since Fei Jin had contact with the people of the inner world, she certainly understood Luo Nan's position. She should know what to do and what not to do in her heart. Xie Junping curled his lips. You've explained so much to me. Should I express my honor? Another person appeared on the stage just as Luo Nan finished speaking. It's a great honor to be able to meet Mr. Luo. This time, it was Black Wolf Sr. This person's attitude was quite proper compared to Fei Jin. When he bowed in greeting, he had a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. My name is Huan Hua. I'm a wandering magician. Mr. Huan Hua. Luo Nan maintained a basic level of respect towards his fellow practitioners of the inner world. Mr. Luo's hypotheses and reasoning regarding the mental world are too brilliant, especially the cage theory. Whether it's inside or outside, it possesses limitless potential. It truly is a genius idea. I believe that this will be a brand new entry point for humans to explore, temper, and entrust their souls. Huanhua appeared to be a mature and steady person from the outside, but he didn't skimp on praising the contents of Luo Nan's lecture. He gave off the feeling that he approved of Luo Nan from the bottom of his heart. Luo Nan had seen this sort of attitude many times since his lecture on the 14th. He was able to face it calmly and gave his thanks once more. Huanhua knew his limits very well. He didn't have any intentions of having a deep conversation with Luo Nan. He just said, I've always wanted to personally experience Mr. Tang Luo's soul lessons. Unfortunately, I will be leaving Xia City tonight. I can only leave this wish for the future. Huanhua bowed once more after he finished speaking and walked away in a straightforward and efficient manner. Black Wolf, who was following behind him, greeted Luo Nan, Shuelei, and the others before leaving with Huanhua. Chapter 617. The meeting that came and went in a hurry was a bit anticlimactic. Fei Jin, Mirage Fire, and Black Wolf were silent the entire way. Each had their own thoughts. After crossing the winding bridge that cut through the forest, Fei Jin stopped at the head of the South Bank Bridge. She said that she was waiting for a friend. Mirage Fire and Black Wolf tactfully said their goodbyes. After a courteous handover, they concluded the mission of Acumen College. The two prepared to walk through the entrance to the underground parking lot of the South Bank Auditorium. Because it was 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening on a weekend, there were not many people around. It was very quiet. Coupled with the outstanding perception of ability users, they could still hear Fei Jin's voice from dozens of meters away. It was different from the soft and low tone before, and it sounded a little sharp. This sort of thing is meaningless. Black Wolf turned his head to look. Under the illumination of the stone lanterns at the head of the bridge, he could see that Fei Jin was talking to someone through a wristband. The atmosphere was quite tense. He raised his eyebrows. TSK. It looks like this lady had a hard time restraining herself. Don't worry about other people's business. Mirage Fire didn't even turn his head. He just walked straight ahead. Black Wolf shrugged. I just find it strange. This mission is too simple. We are the consultants of the Starry Sky Club. How can we just say these few words from beginning to end? There's nothing for me to do. Maybe it's better to stay at the training center at night. Mirage Fire turned his head to look at him. Isn't dealing with Mr. Luo the most difficult thing in Xia City? If you aren't with us, who knows how much more effort it would take to get rid of this misunderstanding? Luo Nan. I heard from Ying that he's usually a weak otaku, but he always overreacts to external stimuli. He's probably the type that doesn't understand the rules of doing things. He acts completely according to his own emotions. Mirage Fire lowered his head and laughed. Mr. Luo is a universally recognized master of perception. Do you think he can hear us across the river? Black Wolf grinned. He's not that petty. Though he said this, Black Wolf changed the subject. Senior, you're leaving tonight, right? I'll take you to the airport. I would have taken you even if you didn't mention it. At least help me return the rental car. Also, I'm not going to the airport. I'm going to the dock. The order has made some last-minute arrangements. They need me to go on a mission in the seas outside of Xia City. If things go smoothly, I might be able to make a detour to Ocean City and take a plane to the New World from there. Black Wolf replied with an "oh" and did not take it too seriously. Ability users like them would always have some strange things to do. Then I'll go with you to the dock and return your car to the car rental company. Actually, Black Wolf knew that the car rental shops in Xia City had value-added services, such as driving or remote summoning services. However, chatting with senior brother Mirage Flame for a while and listening about soul cultivation techniques was always a good idea. The two of them found a flying car in the underground parking lot. This time, Black Wolf sat in the driver's seat. When the car followed the instructions and entered the exit lane, the wind whistled behind them, and a silver-gray supercar swept past them. The side window of the sports car was open, and they could see the fashionable woman in the driver's seat. It was Fei Jean, who had just bid farewell to them not long ago. The air currents from the sports car blew her long, curly hair, making her look dazzling and charming. However, how annoyed was she that she had to drive so fast in the underground parking lot? I hope she won't give us a bad review when she gets back. Don't worry. She wasn't the one who issued the mission, Mirage Flame said, and told Black Wolf the address they were going to. Black Wolf went through it in his mind and said curiously, "That's not a port. A private dock." 40 minutes later, Black Wolf drove the car into the private dock area that Mirage Flame spoke of. This was actually a seaside resort villa area. One could hear the sound of the tide rustling on the coast. The rhythm was distinct, and the place was gentle. In summer, this place would be a golden beach, a tourist attraction. Unfortunately, due to the season, the villa area appeared rather deserted. There were not many lights. Black Wolf drove the car into the villa area under Mirage Flame's guidance. The journey was smooth and unimpeded. It was clear that Mirage Flame had access to this place. This was very normal, but also a bit strange. Black Wolf looked to both sides. Where do I get on the boat? I didn't see where the dock was just now. Hey, look over there. Under the illumination of the car's headlights, the silver-gray, streamlined body of the car was rather eye-catching. Black Wolf felt that this car was very familiar. He was a member of the Xia City branch operation team, so he had a very good memory. He looked at the license plate and concluded, it's that Miss Fei. It's that Miss Fei who's been suppressed miserably. What a coincidence. Is she here to meet her lover? Don't worry about others. Mirage Flame signaled Black Wolf to stop the car. The two got off the car one after another. Then Mirage Flame pointed to the detached villa next to them. This is it. Black Wolf laughed in spite of himself. Senior, are you driving this house to the sea? Mirage Flame responded seriously. This is the ticket hall. Huh? Black Wolf didn't understand. He just followed Mirage Flame subconsciously. Mirage Flame was very familiar with this place. He also had the corresponding access. He crossed the front yard in 2 or 3 steps and opened the front door of the villa. The lights in the villa were always on. After the door opened, the gentle light seeped out from the room, an elongated Mirage Flame shadow. The shadow extended to Black Wolf's feet. A secret base, Black Wolf mumbled. He already had a guess in his mind. Mirage Flame didn't go to the sea through proper channels. This was nothing. This was normal in the inner world. Black Wolf was even a bit happy. Being able to follow him here meant that in Mirage Flame's eyes, he already had the qualifications to enter the villa. He walked through the door, and before he could look at the decorations inside, Mirage Flame suddenly remembered something. I left my tool bag in the car. I'll go get it. Forget it. You don't know which one it is. Give me the key. Sit in the living room for a while. There should be fruits there. Mirage Flame took the key and walked back. Black Wolf shrugged. Only then did he see that the main hall of the villa was a hollow structure. The first and second floors were connected by a circular staircase. It was very spacious and spacious. It would be a pity if it was left empty, huh? At this moment, Black Wolf suddenly heard a familiar voice. It was shouting in an intense tone. These tests are meaningless. There's no meaning in them at all. Don't you understand? I'm not his type. His attitude is just perfunctory. Black Wolf was stunned. Then a low and pleasant female voice rang out. Of course there is meaning in the tests. The importance that person places on gear and the withered tree sandbar are all points that can be used. Furthermore, you have a nominal connection with him. So you know it's nominal? I'm sorry, but I can't carry that name. At the same time, I have my reservations about your recent work arrangements. I will report this to the relevant authorities. As the voice spoke, high heels stomped heavily on the floor. A certain lady, fine, it was Fei Jean, who he had already met many times tonight. She stormed out of her room on the second floor. She strode to the staircase, but she stopped. His eyes met the Black Wolf's in the completely empty main hall. Black Wolf's mind went blank. He instinctively wanted to explain, but in the next moment, there was a slight gap between their gazes. It was also at this moment that a strong sense of fear rapidly spread from her eyes to her entire face. Not good. Chapter 6:18. At the staircase on the second floor, Fei Jean had witnessed a creepy and cruel sneak attack scene from beginning to end. Moreover, the two main characters in this scene had only parted ways with her less than an hour ago. She watched as the middle-aged man named Huanhuo pretended to leave and then return. He approached He Lang's back like a ghost and locked his throat. Fei Jean felt that she was experiencing a nightmare herself. Half a second later, Huanhuo raised his head. His gaze was calm, but it was clearly filled with the coldest elements. Under his gaze, Fei Jin's throat seemed to be strangled by an invisible hand. She could not make a sound. Only fear and instinct drove her to turn around and flee in the direction from which she had come. But the moment she turned around, a face filled her entire field of vision. It was so close that she could only see a pair of charming, narrow eyes that were as calm and cold as Huanhuo's. Then, a hand strangled her neck, and a familiar voice entered her ears. It's okay if you don't want to take this mission. Someone else will take over your work. You can take some time off. It's Christmas. I'll grant you a long vacation, okay? A long vacation? No. Fei Jean finally saw the face in front of her clearly. Hatred and even more intense fear filled her chest. She wanted to struggle, but the other party exerted his strength before she could. An irresistible force came, causing her body to fall backward and hit the fence behind her. Then, she flipped and hung in the air, her head spinning. Fei Jean wanted to scream out of instinct, but the dry and warm sensation on her throat was clearly magical. It firmly sealed the last bit of strength in her vocal cords. She could only open her eyes wide and let the decorative background of the main hall of the villa and the familiar, yet strange face on the second floor twist and weave together. Finally, the bizarre scenery and the corresponding fear broke the string of her will. Before she could touch the ground, the darkness had already drowned her. Downstairs, Huanhuo caught Fei Jean, who had fallen down, and placed her on the sofa near the fireplace. Then, he lifted the plush carpet that covered the area from the main hall door to the spiral staircase. Under the beautiful fabric, there was a flat layer of tiles. However, the structure of this layer of tiles looked very complicated. Every tile had a different shape, but they were joined together seamlessly, forming a complex and strange graphic structure. The internal structure of this area was indescribable. It was a long and narrow rhombus shape. Phantom Fire placed Black Wolf, who was still unconscious, at a sharp corner of the diamond-shaped area. He occupied another spot, about 6 meters away from Black Wolf. At this time, on the second floor, the sound of heels hitting the ground could be heard again. Another figure appeared on the railing. However, Huanhuo didn't even look in that direction. After everything was arranged properly, he took off his clothes and sat down with his legs crossed. His hands formed a seal, and he began to chant an incantation in a low voice. As the low and hoarse voice flowed out, the space in the main hall of the villa seemed to ripple slightly. The light was distorted, forming a looming three-dimensional structure in the void. At the same time, it looked like a translucent spiderweb that was shot out of thin air and connected the phantom fire and the black wolf. The incantation came to an end. The diamond-shaped area on the ground and the invisible threads of light in the air had already built a complex and complete structure together. Juan's eyes were wide open. He spat out the powerful incantation, as if he had spat out all the air in his body. His entire body was shrunk, making him look strange and demonic. However, he didn't maintain this image for long. Scorching flames shot out from his mouth where he had just spat out the incantation, and from the gaps of his eyes, ears, and nose. The flames surrounded Juan's head. Then they moved downward past his shoulders, chest, abdomen, and legs. Wherever they passed, the skin and flesh were like the highest level of fuel, emitting pure light and heat. In the depths of the flames, there was a silver luster. The flames moved from the top to the bottom, and from the bottom to the top. When they returned to the top of his head, they suddenly turned into a mottled ray of light that faintly turned into a rainbow. They were placed between Juan's head and Black Wolf's head. With a muffled bang, the flames dissipated. The place where Juan had been sitting was no longer a human. What was left was a metal object that looked like a human. Apart from that, there were no other traces. After a few seconds, the unconscious Black Wolf on the ground suddenly shuddered. His entire body began to twitch slightly. This state lasted for more than a minute. Then, Black Wolf opened his eyes. He moved his fingers a little, twisted his neck, and then sat up. His body swayed back and forth, as if he was still dizzy, but his eyes were clear. After a short pause, he slowly got up. Ignoring the weakness in his legs, he slowly walked to the remains of Juan. He dismantled the metal frame with familiarity, turned it into a set of parts, and put them into his tool bag. After doing all this, Black Wolf, or Juan, cleaned up the scene and put the carpet back in place. Then, he pushed the door open, started the car, and disappeared into the night. From the beginning to the end, he didn't care about Fei Jean, who was by the fireplace. It was as if this was the entire mission. As the car drove away, the seaside holiday villa was once again submerged in silence. But this atmosphere didn't last long. The crystal light shone down on the unconscious Fei Jin's face, reflecting the luster of youth. That's great. You're as young as a flower. What do you think of the target I chose for you? There were two figures at the top of the stairs on the second floor. One of them had just pushed Fei Jin down the stairs. She leaned against the fence, her camel-colored long windbreaker open, revealing a snow-white shirt and dark pants. Her short hair was thin, making her look bright and crisp. But her voluptuous body curves, as well as the 12-centimeter stilettos on her feet, still highlighted a strong feminine quality. Beside her, Inlo wore a very ordinary professional suit. Although her looks, figure, and youthfulness were superior, she still couldn't compare to this person's carefree and easygoing nature. The Bloodflame Order was currently facing a grim situation, including this person's attitude and behavior, made it impossible for her to be casual. So, Inlu glared at him sternly. Multifaceted, what do you mean? Multifaceted smiled in response. As you requested, I'm fighting for a chance to get close to Mr. Luo. Don't increase your physical body unless necessary. I thought this kind of simple logic didn't need to be emphasized. Then why did you go through me? Through the manager of the Starry Sky Club, a person with extremely complicated social connections? When multifaceted, or rather, Sun Jiai, appeared in this villa, she was no longer the manager of the leisure club, but a well-known broker who roamed the various forces in the inner world. Aside from attentive service, she also had her own way of doing things when dealing with clients. You must know that the current Xia City branch is still in a loose on the outside but tight on the inside. Any ability user who can interact with a target for a long period of time is the result of going through a sieve several times. So, I believe that the true don't increase your physical body is to borrow the help of relevant personnel who have previously made contact with you. Chapter 619. Sun Jai pointed at Fei Jean by the fireplace. She is a student of Acumen College. At the same time, she is one of the investors of the Mystic Arts Research Society. She has a relatively close relationship with the outer circle of the inner world. She can have close contact with Mr. Luo at the school and at the banquet organized recently. Moreover, the distance between them is very appropriate. You can talk about something through her. You can also do something through her. You can treat her as a communication software, but she can also be used as a more effective tool. With such a buffer, it would be great if the effect of contact is positive. Even if the effect is negative, as long as you rationally control your limits, it won't have an excessive impact on your relationship with Mr. Luo. Inlu wasn't convinced by her. Sun Jai smiled as she faced the fierce and murderous gaze. She pointed at her own forehead. Of course, I won't deny that there are some other calculations involved. This is because this Miss Fei has many illustrious statuses. She is also a secret observer of the LCRF. She is also a newly promoted agent. This has formed a certain restraint and conflict with my duties in Xia City. Right now, the situation over at the Starry Sky Club is complicated. This new agent has always wanted to take over my position. She has also been secretly gathering information that is disadvantageous to me. I don't have any plans to resign for now, so I'll teach her a lesson. The curve of Ian Lee's lips was like an unsheathed scimitar. She took a step back and continued to draw a clear line between herself and Sun Jai. Unfortunately, we cannot accept this reason. Sun Jai shrugged. It shouldn't be your turn to make this decision. Is that right, madam? Behind Ian Lu, the shadow formed by the clash of light and substance shook slightly. Madame Halder's voice drifted out. It was like silk, yet it was clear and discernible. You could try to convince me. Boss. Ian Lu was very shocked. Why would Madame Halder, who was dozens of kilometers away, suddenly use a secret technique and directly communicate with Sun Jai? Because of this, she quickly shut her mouth. She didn't want to sing a different tune from her own first ablatum in front of outsiders. The situation of the communication within the empty villa changed. Sun Jai stood up straight for the first time. She gave a slight bow towards Ian Lu. Actually, she was giving a polite and appropriate greeting to Madame Halder's divine sense in the shadow behind Ian Lu. I will be happy to expand on my ideas and advance my work. Do not increase the physical unless necessary. Humans tend to interpret and drive the world in a more efficient manner. But in fact, the scope of our willful use of this mode is very small and only exists in a narrow area of our control. Like now, speaking up to this point, she suddenly changed the topic. Mr. Luo is under the protection of the Xia City branch. He is in close contact with Mr. Luo. He is under the protection of layers upon layers of the Xia City branch. Recently, there were very few people who made such a high technical request, and the reward was sufficiently generous. That's why I'm giving you a corresponding value-added service for free. The soul transfer array here will allow you to save more effort and be more discreet. Out of professional consideration, I must mention the sponsor of the product, a secret organization that has been quite active recently, the Soul Cult. Soul Cult? Ian Lu repeated subconsciously. Sun Jai smiled. Yes, the Soul Cult. If you're willing or must use this product, I can give a further explanation. In the shadows, Lady Halder said coldly, No, there is no need. I just need a reason to continue our partnership. I'm a broker. I don't presume any standpoint, and I possess sufficient professional ethics. That's enough. Sun Jai spread her hands. She seemed innocent and free and at ease, but she could only shrug when faced with the gaze of disregard. Fine. Sometimes I tend to make my work simple. I combine and reorganize matters that are related to secrets, and I advance them as a whole. Just like tonight. You wish to obtain an opportunity to make contact with Mr. Luo. The Soul Cult requests an opportunity to infiltrate the Xia City branch. At the same time, the Soul Cult is very interested in making contact with you. They even have plans and needs that are further advanced. I use the physical of an event to coordinate and combine these three matters to achieve the greatest efficiency. I believe that this is a true example of do not increase the physical unless necessary. Is that so? In the shadows, Lady Halder's thoughts turned bone-piercingly cold. You attempted to direct our actions and directly exposed our secret intentions. Is this what you call professional ethics? Inla didn't say a word as she acted as a long-distance carrier. Dark red, flowing light shuttled and interweaved within her pupils. Her aura was abnormally withdrawn. She had already completed her preparations to attack at any moment. I believe that this is the foundation of our many years of cooperation. It's the second value-added service that I'll give you for free. Madam, you actually don't know that the soul cult has their eyes on you? Flames swirled within Li's eyes, but her feet didn't move an inch. Perhaps her thoughts were the same. Sun Jiai continued to speak. Perhaps the soul cult feels embarrassed about this situation, so they asked me to bring you a message. Right now, the Blood Flame Order isn't having an easy time. Perhaps it's time for them to look for allies, external aid, or even to find someone to rely on. You're multifaceted, Inlu subconsciously rebuked. Sun Jiai took a step back. Her smile remained. I'm just a broker. I'm just a messenger. Aside from that, I have no other standpoint. Madam, if you consider their suggestions, or if you simply need more information regarding the soul cult, you can find me. The method of contact remains the same, and the price can be discounted. As she spoke, Sun Jiai leisurely walked down the stairs. When she reached the bottom, she turned back. Although there's no conclusive evidence, based on our current analysis, it's very likely that Mr. Luo has the ability to sense things in a large area. Even though this place is still considered far from his current location, I still suggest that we don't cause too much of a commotion. The soul transfer array is a good choice, but if Madam insists, the Blood Flame Order's secret technique shouldn't be a problem. Oh, that's right. Before Fei Jean fainted, she had already accumulated enough fear. It's a good prerequisite for the execution of your esteemed Order's secret technique. For this reason, I even self-destructed. This is also the third value-added service that I'm giving you for free. I hope Madam will remember it. After saying these words, Sun Jiai left the villa. She left a large amount of doubts and strange elements behind, allowing them to fully ferment and constantly change into new components. A few seconds later, Madame Halder's thoughts manifested. Inlu. Boss. Secret orders aren't just any random person. Yes, boss. The establishment of every order is supported by at least one extraordinary or an existence close to one. Yes. Otherwise, the order would have no foundation in the Abyss District. Chapter 620. Sister, over here. Tianqi stood up and greeted Tianxi from a corner of the bar. Tianxi also saw her cousin. She carefully bypassed the bustling stream of people and walked over. I haven't seen your shadow for almost a month. Are you also in seclusion? Tianqi pulled out the chair where his jacket was placed and invited his cousin to take a seat. He complained incessantly, but the target of his attack was quite subtle. Tianxi laughed. Before she could speak, Tianqi had already noticed the relaxed and joyful expression on her face. He lightly slapped the table. It looks like there are no problems on Grandma Pan's side. Yes, I've received the official notice. Although there's still half a year before school officially starts, I'll be following the project starting next month. Congratulations, congratulations. Grandma Pan's graduate student quota is enough to make people fight over it every year. I can only say that I was lucky. Tianxi didn't want to talk about this topic. She called over the waitress dressed as a witch. A cup of mocha. Thank you. The waitress recognized Tianxi. She apologized softly. Senior Sister Tian, the coffee is sold out. Then a cup of hot cocoa. The waitress accepted the order and left. Tianqi rushed to claim credit. See, it wasn't easy for me to save you a seat. Tianxi's gaze swept across the corner of the bar. This was the public activity area located on the second floor of Northern Rock Gear. It was close to the Sandbar waterway and faced the scenery at the bottom of the lake. It was originally a good place to cultivate the body and mind, but the surging stream of people made it seem more like a popular tourist spot. Your society's theme week is pretty good. It's not purely based on the theme week. Right now, this place is almost bursting with people. I really miss the days when it was just Luo, Nan, and the others, even though I didn't come here many times. Tianqi sighed. He consciously lowered his voice. Sister, did you come here to find Luo Nan? It's not easy to see him right now. I made an appointment. This kind of conversation shouldn't have happened between schoolmates, but the Tian siblings felt that it was very normal. That's good. Tianqi suddenly cried out before he could finish speaking. Behind me, look at the lake. Tianqi subconsciously turned her head and saw a huge and flat body slanted at a certain angle in the lake of chaos, separated by tempered glass to the side of the public activity area. It silently streaked past, blocking the line of sight of everyone in the bar. There was no source of light at the bottom of the lake, only the lights from the public area projected into the lake. Under the illumination of the lights, the demonic fish that looked like giant bats were showing off their wingspans that were more than 20 meters long and their pale lower abdomen, which had hideous mouthparts to the tourists. Especially when the demonic fish turned around, its 10-meter-long, thin tail of scales slammed into the tempered glass. The heavy impact seemed to make the entire glass wall tremble. The tail even carried its own electric flames. Every time it jumped and flashed, it seemed to burn the hearts of the onlookers. Many men and women cried out in fear and excitement. Tianqi stared blankly at this scene. Even though she had been mentally prepared, when she saw this demonic fish, the terrifying scene from 2 months ago seemed to replay itself. She couldn't help but shiver, her cheeks almost draining of blood. In comparison, Tianqi had seen a lot more, and he didn't know what his cousin had experienced in Ocean Sky Cloud City. He let out a sigh of satisfaction. It's different from what I saw in Ocean Sky Cloud City. It seems like they could break through the glass at any time. Actually, I don't think any theme week can compare to this thing going around in a circle. Sis, are you okay? Tianqi seemed to wake up from a dream, but it wasn't good to turn her head and let her cousin see her current expression. She could only speak randomly. This stingray is the one from Ocean Sky Cloud City. Yes, that's the one. It's grown quite a bit. Who says it isn't? I heard that its wingspan has grown by nearly a third since it was first captured, and its growth has been concentrated in the past 2 months. It must have eaten and drunk while in Ocean Sky Cloud City and fattened up. The stingray swaggered around behind the tempered glass for a while, then turned and entered the depths of the lake where people couldn't see. It left the ground full of exclamations of admiration. However, no one here knew that among them there was someone who had previously come into close contact with this aberration, the kind that was almost eaten. Tianqi turned around and subconsciously picked up the hot drink on the table. Only then did she realize that her hands had become cold, and her legs were even trembling. But at the same time, her heart was boiling hot, and then a vermilion blush stained her face. This was also a mixture of fear and excitement. Her mood wasn't much different from the others present, but it was more deeply colored by memories, or perhaps it was sublimated by expectations. Last time in Ocean Sky Cloud City, this ferocious monster had used its long electric tail to wrap around her legs, and it could tear her to pieces in the next second. But it was also from that incident that she truly glimpsed the scene behind the scenes of today's world and touched upon a magical corner of the inner world. She took small sips of the hot cocoa to calm herself down, then asked, "This mutant should be very dangerous. Why did it move here?" It said that the family that left the stingray in Ocean Sky Cloud City couldn't afford the rental and feeding fees, so they sold this thing at a high price. The buyer was someone in our society, but no one knew that this person was willful enough to directly move this monster here as an ornamental fish. You don't know what? Nothing. I'm just a little curious as to who would spend so much money to open up their connections and place a mutant in the jungle of the North Bank. Professor Wu and the others can't bear to see this happen. You're talking about Professor Pan's husband, right? He's probably going to go mad with anger. Apparently, he took advantage of Professor Pan's trip to act first and report later. It's hard to say whether or not he'll be able to stay here for a long time. Tianqi was quite open-minded. I think it's most likely temporary. It just so happens that the theme week needs a gimmick. Speaking of which, Vice President O's Elusis apparatus replay program has already collapsed. I heard that Luo Nan was the one who stopped it. Now that the Stingray is here, no one would have the guts to run to the lake and cause a ruckus. From his point of view, you understand. Yeah, we all understand. Her slender fingers were placed lightly on Tianqi's shoulder. They were like jade tubes, yet they carried the pressure of a steel pipe. Tianqi jumped in fright. He reflexively wanted to get up, but he was pressed down to the point where he couldn't move. Tianqi stood up and greeted the mature and sexy woman behind Tianqi. "Hello, Miss Cat Eyes. You're welcome. I'm just an errand boy. I'm in charge of delivering and receiving messages." Cat Eyes very naturally pulled Tianqi out of his seat. She used this willful manipulation method to indicate to the young man to go do what he needed to do. Tianqi more or less had some understanding of this woman. He didn't say much. He winked at Tianqi, shrunk into the back of the crowd, and soon disappeared. Cat Eyes was the famous queen of nightclubs in Xia City. She really liked to join in on the fun, but she hated the bustling environment of gear because it brought her unnecessary workload. So she made a long story short. Luo Nan, Gao Meng, and Papercut. Oh, you know the one in the back. They're discussing some technical issues and forgot about the time. If you're willing to wait, I can take you to the 6th floor to rest. Actually, I just want to help an elder send an invitation. Elder? It's my instructor, Professor Pan One. I know. Luo Nan's mother's instructor, right? From now on, you'll be his teacher's aunt. That's not necessary. Tianqi was still a bit reserved when facing Cat Eyes. She wasn't used to chatting and joking with her. Okay, I understand. Come with me. Won't I disturb him? Tianqi was still a bit worried. You've already agreed to wait. What's there to disturb? Cat Eye smiled and stood up. She led Tianqi around the stream of people and slowly walked down the fire escape passageway. She casually explained, "Right now, there are too many idle people waiting. For the sake of tranquility, the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors have been sealed off from the outside world. It's not too convenient to go in and out. It's not good to have an elevator or something like that. We'll go down the stairs. There'll be a clearance check to get to the 5th floor. It'll be a bit troublesome. You should be prepared." Tianqi grunted in response and subconsciously sucked in a breath. She didn't feel that it would be troublesome. Instead, she felt quite expectant. The two ladies walked down 1 floor at a time. After passing through 2 floors, the clamor of the public activity area was more or less masked. Only the rhythmic sound of footsteps could be heard in the stairwell. Tianqi slightly adjusted her breathing. She pondered for a moment on what to say when she saw Luo Nan. Actually, she had rehearsed this conversation many times before, but she still couldn't help feeling nervous and anxious at this moment. Tianqi sighed to herself with such a state of mind. What the heart desires, there must be fear. Perhaps this was a type of blinded by greed. It was at this time that Cat Eyes spoke. "You want to enter our circle?" Tianqi's inner thoughts have been exposed in a single sentence. She subconsciously shivered and raised her head to look. Cat Eyes raised an eyebrow. "What's there to be nervous about? It's not like you're a bandit. If you want to do it, just say it. Do you want to become an ability user?" The corner of Tianqi's lips twitched. She laughed self-deprecatingly. "Anyone can probably tell what I'm thinking." Who was the last person who could tell? Luo Nan? It was Mr. Papercut. Oh, Cat Eyes came to a sudden realization. Though she didn't participate in some matters, she still possessed the relevant information. You crossed paths with him twice. That's right. The matter with Ocean Sky Cloud City will certainly affect you. You must have seriously considered it for you to be able to endure for so long before saying it. Actually, I didn't say it. Tianqi didn't dare to say these words. She could only nod. Papercut is a rather steady person. He didn't blindly encourage you back then, did he? Tianqi shook her head immediately. The matter with Ocean Sky Cloud City didn't need to be mentioned. She had yet to recover from a shock, causing her memories to be a bit messy. Her memories were especially deep and fuzzy. However, she had a clear memory of the entire matter from the get-together at Aurora Cloud City. She remembered that she had once mustered up the courage to ask Papercut, but he seemed to have intentionally avoided this topic. Cat Eyes snorted. He's quite responsible. His mind is clear. He knows that this is a field where talent is the most important. Talent? Chapter 621. Cat Eye's super blunt words caused Tian-Si's cheeks to turn pale. She felt as if her feet were covered in lead, unable to lift them up. She unconsciously stopped walking, and Cat Eyes immediately stopped as well. The two stood in the stairwell, and the atmosphere naturally became heavy. Tian-Si knew that she had lost her composure, but she was unable to control it. From her perspective, Cat Eyes was undoubtedly giving her a stern warning. Cat Eyes told her not to have wishful thinking and enter the level and domain of the inner world. Okay, perhaps this was also a warning. The problem was that her plans, hopes, and fantasies were all going to turn to ashes just because of a single sentence from Cat Eyes. Ms. Cat Eyes. Tian-Si spat out the words with great difficulty. I told you, you don't need to be so polite. Cat Eyes turned to the side and crossed her arms over her chest. She looked at Tian-Si's expression with interest. I just spoke a few words of truth, that's all. Before Tian-Si arrived at Gear, she never imagined that this would be the situation. It must be known that she invested all of her energy into Professor Pan at the end of the year. It wasn't purely for the sake of obtaining a corresponding offer. It was for the sake of saving the country in a roundabout way. She wanted to use her relationship with Professor Pan to further tie herself to Luo Nan's network. On Professor Pan's side, she succeeded and gained the old lady's love and trust. However, when she turned around and wanted to take advantage of the situation to win the final result, she was told, "You simply don't have the qualifications to do so." A few breaths later, Tian-Si tried to regain control of her mind, but it was to no avail. It was at this moment that Cat Eye's voice entered her ears once more. Her voice wasn't loud, but she could hear it clearly. Let's not talk about whether or not you can become an ability user. Let me ask you one thing. What is your goal? Goal? Yeah. Do you want to enter a new domain and adventure? Do you want to obtain more capital to live a better life? Do you want to borrow new strength to solve old troubles? Or do you want to satisfy your ambition to continuously improve? Tian-Si was a bit stupefied. She didn't know how to respond. Cat Eyes hooked a finger at her and continued down. At the same time, she said with a chuckle, "You can seriously think about it and find your position. Many people yearn to be a star, but when they enter the entertainment circle, all they get is an assistant. The feeling of being served and being served is completely different, right?" Yes, yes. Tian-Si's mind was muddled and her heart was unsettled. She didn't even know what she was saying. Like a marionette, she followed Cat Eyes step by step. Very soon, they arrived at the sealed entrance. Cat Eyes examined Tian-Si's authority step by step and made a record. Then, she brought Tian-Si into the forbidden zone that had been sealed off for almost a week. The voice of the artificial intelligence sobered Tian-Si up a little. She suddenly discovered that Cat Eye's words were extremely odd. Her heart skipped a beat, and certain words blurted out from her mouth. As long as you have a clear location, you can also serve people. Hee, say that to someone else. This time, Cat Eyes did not even turn her head. She only waved her hand. There's no need to tell me too much. I'm not your life coach. It's just that in the past few years, I've seen a lot of people in and out of the industry, especially the mentality of a bunch of people in the periphery, so I decided to chat with them and watch the show. Tian-Si opened her mouth, but was unable to continue the conversation. However, she was able to confirm Cat Eye's playful attitude. But she couldn't bring herself to be angry at all. On the contrary, the hope that had already been extinguished sprouted from the ashes, growing and spreading. We're here. This place is quite spacious. A lot of equipment hasn't been shipped in yet. There's no reception room or anything like that. I'll just lead you to the end. In any case, they should be done chatting soon. As she spoke, Cat Eyes had already brought Tian-Si to the underground 7th floor of Gear. There was practically no difference in the layout of this place from a few days ago. There was a large expanse of spacious area, and only the innermost corner had the corresponding experimental equipment set up. Tianci saw Luo Nan and the other two sitting on the ground in a very casual manner in the innermost side of the experimental area. Their hands seemed to be fiddling with stacks of paper drafts and the like. The color of the paper was clearly yellow. It was quite peculiar. Cat Eyes stopped 20 meters away from the three. Let's wait here. If you're tired, you can do the same as them. No need. Tianci shook her head. Her gaze wavered a bit. It would fall on Luo Nan for a moment, and then it would turn back to Cat Eyes for a moment. As for her state of mind and thoughts, they only became more turbulent. Cat Eyes suddenly turned her head. She gave a smile that was not a smile. Actually, I wouldn't have said these words to you 2 weeks ago. Then, after all, the situation is different now. Look at that person. Who? Missed a paper cut? Tianci followed the direction of Cat Eyes' finger and locked onto the target, but she still did not understand the deep meaning behind it. 2 weeks ago, I saw this person. He was probably destined to be a support for his entire life. He couldn't deal damage. He couldn't support the overall situation. It would be hard for him to raise his cultivation and status. This is the result of the limitations of his talent. But now things are a bit different. Cat Eyes really dared to speak without the slightest scruple. At this time, Papercut was completely engrossed in conversing with Luo Nan. He would wave his hand and gesture from time to time. His face was full of emotions, but he turned a deaf ear to the evaluation of others. Tianci did not know what Papercut and Luo Nan were talking about, but she saw Luo Nan scratching his ears and cheeks. Luo Nan was so happy that he couldn't contain himself. Tianci knew that it was certainly an extremely positive matter. Tianci naturally had a simple inference when she combined what Cat Eyes had said before. Could it be that what Luo Nan was talking about right now was a method that could cross the barrier of talent? Tianci's heart thumped loudly, and she unconsciously took a step forward. She managed to control herself with great difficulty, but she still pricked up her ears and did her best to catch the bits and pieces of conversation that flowed over. The problem was that she had no foundation in the domain of ability users, let alone Luo Nan and the other two being far away. Even if Luo Nan and the other two were close at hand, it would be impossible for her to understand what Luo Nan was saying. In a corner of the laboratory, Gao Meng, a B-rank ability user, had long since noticed Cat Eyes and Tianci coming over. He shot a glance over and chuckled at Luo Nan. You have an appointment with a beautiful woman? Private business, Luo Nan responded, but he realized that he had gone off topic. Before Luo Nan could explain, Papercut, who was sitting cross-legged and grimacing at the paper talismans scattered on the ground, raised his head in a daze. Is there a problem? Luo Nan and Gao Meng shook their heads together. Now that we've reached this step, it's basically quite appropriate. Gao Meng snapped his fingers, and a paper talisman on the ground quietly floated into the air. It spontaneously combusted without fire. The flame was like the finger of a god. It danced a few times, and in the blink of an eye, the paper talisman was sculpted and twisted into the shape of a ring within the light of the flames. The ring's diameter was slightly thicker than Gao Meng's wrist. It floated down like a feather and was caught by Gao Meng's hand. Tianci was stupefied from watching, but Papercut was eager to get into action. Let's try again. Who wants to try? Luo Nan simply responded, Don't bother two masters for the same thing. Chapter 6:22. After 1,000th of a second, Gao Meng's consciousness cut into the incorporeal and majestic fortress in the depths of the storm. The energy storm surged ceaselessly in the outside world. There seemed to be a path of wind, but there seemed to be no pattern to speak of. There was only pure destructive power wreaking havoc. Any ability user who could enter the abyssal region had to resist and contend against this destructive attack before they could make a move. But ever since the space fortress was erected, the configuration built by the combined efforts of over 1,000 people grew from nothing. It grew stronger bit by bit, using a steady and conservative method to gradually expand its domain and deepen its imprint. This was a continuous process. In the overall design of the Ring of Blood and Tint, a seed, a tender sprout, grew and catalyzed step by step, gradually becoming a towering tree that could resist the destructive storm. Just this alone made the Ring of Blood Intent, which Luo Nan promoted, ranked among the greatest inventions of the inner world. Gao Ming did not need to borrow external force to mentally wander in the center of the abyssal region. But how could a short period of time, measured in seconds, compare to the stability and safety of the fortress? The space fortress constructed by the Ring of Blood Intent was already the top choice of the ability users of Xia City. Even if they had nothing to do here, it was good to be able to admire the scenery of the abyssal region and watch the gods fight. Whether it was Gao Ming or the other ability users of Xia City, they were all having fun in this space fortress. But who would have thought that its inventor was no longer satisfied with his current achievements? He was currently attempting to make changes to it with a high degree of passion and urgency. The telepathic guidance is very clear. It still maintains its independence. It doesn't affect others. Gao Ming lightly scratched the thin talisman paper outside his bracelet. He felt the special ink fuse with the paper. It naturally guided the interference power to transform into an even finer and more exquisite power structure. It was just as Luo Nan said, "Don't bother two masters for one thing." As the representative of the ancient talisman school of the inner world, he was already familiar with the entire process of using talismans. No one was more proficient in this path than he was. Although Papercut was an expert in this field, there was still an insurmountable gap in his cultivation realm. Look at the main point. Cat Eyes lowered her voice to an extremely low level. She hinted to Tian Si. That fake Taoist priest is a fierce person in our area. He sells talisman paper every day. But now he's like an obedient student in front of Luo Nan. What does this mean? Tian Si said. She didn't know how to respond. In the end, it was Cat Eyes who broke through the paper window. This shows that the one surnamed Luo has a thick thigh that everyone wants to hug. The weak wanted to break through, and the strong wanted to become stronger. In this way, who can be more popular than the one surnamed Luo? Oh yes. The problem is, look at his thin arms and legs. How much volume can he have if he cuts off his entire thigh? Xia City, no. The people of the inner world will all want to get close to you. When the time comes, will they even give you a strand of leg hair? At this time, if Tian Si still couldn't understand Cat Eye's meaning, then her 10 years of schooling would have been wasted. She followed up on Cat Eye's words. What should I do? Risk. Even under the dark eye Shidao, Cat Eyes still emitted a sharp light that streaked across the tip of Tian Si's heart, taking a huge risk to do something that even we ability users can't do. Tian Si really didn't understand. At this time, Gao Ming continued to describe the feeling after using the talisman paper. The internal molding is basically complete, and there is no interference. However, interference power isn't enough. We still need to cooperate to complete it. Someone, come help out. I'll do it. I'll do it. Papercut had already burned the talisman paper, forming a paper circle and pasting it together. Right now, he just needed to send his telepathic thoughts into it and jump into the abyss. He went with Gao Ming to forge a brand new function for the fort. But soon, Gao Ming shouted, 2 people aren't enough. Cat Eyes, you go. Luo Nan's situation was special. Adding him would cause a deviation, so he immediately called out, who else is up there? Call them over. Follow Papercut's procedure. Once you get to the fort, just listen to Gao Ming's directions. Cat Eyes made an okay gesture and immediately contacted the personnel in charge of security. She gave clear instructions and walked forward. Her telepathic thoughts chased after Gao Ming and Papercut. Tian Si became a superfluous person in an instant. She didn't know what she should do. Especially half a minute later, a few ability users walked in with large strides. Everyone had their own duties. They were busy, but not messy, making Tian Si look like a steak. There's probably no place for non-specialists in his field. Tian Si's mind was a jumble of thoughts. She was at a complete loss. A figure walked in front of her at this time. Senior Sister Tian. Ah, Senior Luo. Junior Luo. Tian Si didn't know how to address him, but it looked like Luo Nin didn't care too much. The smile on his face was the same as always. He wasn't that close, but he was very polite. Senior sister, sorry to trouble you to make another trip. No, it's nothing. Tianci didn't know why, but her heart tightened as she watched Luo Nan approach. Her many years of experience and quick-wittedness were useless. She subconsciously asked, Junior, what are you guys doing? Luo Nan didn't mind. He answered her question, I want to add a cheat to the ring of Bloodwill. I want to put the results of my recent studies into practice. The ring of Bloodwill? Tianci obviously didn't understand. She could only do her best to reveal a smile. It sounds like a marvelous technique. Oh, it's quite simple. Luo Nan wouldn't say much to a layman like Tianci. He was just about to change the topic when Cat Eyes just so happened to exit the fortress from behind. She stretched her back. You were the one who came up with this idea. Is there a problem? Luo Nan was very baffled. I haven't found anything yet, but there are enough people over there. I don't want to do experiments in a rigid manner, so I left. Luo Nan couldn't pay attention to Tianci for now. He turned his head to glance at Gao Meng and the others, who were in the middle of deep experiments. He counted the number of people and made a preliminary estimate. Then he opened up the virtual work area and made a record. 5 people forming the basic functional module. There should be room for optimization. Tianci couldn't hold back her curiosity. She focused her gaze and saw that aside from the scribbled words and numbers in the work area, there were groups of simple and complex geometrical figures. From the perspective of a professional designer, these figures undoubtedly possessed the meaning of a real structure. Though she was completely unable to understand them, Cat Eyes really didn't have the slightest interest in these things. She yawned half-truthfully. Isn't the ring of Bloodwill pretty good? You're going to toss and turn like this. Don't do something superfluous in the end. Everything depends on the results. Luo Nan didn't have absolute confidence, but he didn't hesitate in the slightest. He had gotten used to expressing his thoughts to Rui when during this time. Even though he had switched to Cat Eyes, and there was still the layman Tianci by his side, he still couldn't stop himself. He sorted out his thoughts and vented. The ring of Bloodwill can be simple, but the fortress formed from it should have a more complex structure. Actually, if there were a few more clear-headed people over there, then there would be a more detailed division of labor in the design. It would inevitably jump out of a pure defensive mode and form the effect of attack and defense as one. In the end, whether it's the ring of Bloodwill or the fortress, they should both belong to the basic framework. It is like a development platform. According to its rules and regulations, it should form a large amount of research and development results. It should form a system and a scale of existence. Oh, what I mean is that it is like a high-rise building. There should be all sorts of supporting facilities within the building to realize different functions. Luo Nan made the last analogy out of consideration after seeing that Tianci was completely stupefied. Tianci's cheeks flushed a bit, and her gaze drifted. She really didn't understand the contents of Luo Nan and Cat Eye's discussion, but when she truly touched upon this mysterious and unfamiliar domain, even if it was just an insignificant corner, the trembling that came from the bottom of her heart spread throughout her entire body like an electric shock. It was like a spring dream awakened in the middle of the night. It formed a feeling of unbridled satisfaction. But emptiness and absent-mindedness were unavoidable after this satisfaction. Luo Nan didn't ponder over Tianci's feelings. He just spoke apologetically. Senior, I'm sorry. I haven't regained my senses yet. You came this time. Tianci shook her head, using this opportunity to sort out her feelings. It's nothing. It sounds quite fresh. Yeah, Junior, I came today to run errand for my teacher. Tianci finally recovered a bit of the feeling of senior when talking about matters of the normal world. Her body language relaxed quite a bit. Some time ago, I took the liberty to tell Professor Pan about your matters. She really does miss you, but she hasn't seen you come over. Plus, there are all sorts of design projects at the end of the year. She doesn't have the time to spare. It's not easy for her to have some free time, so she wants to invite you to her house. Professor Pan is inviting me to her house? Luo Nan was a bit surprised, but he quickly reacted. It's my fault. I've troubled her with my matters. Luo Nan hesitated a bit when he spoke to this point. His eyelids drooped, and he was a bit embarrassed. Senior, you should be able to understand. I've offended a lot of people in the inner world recently, and some of them are very tasteless. I'm worried that I'll get too close to Professor Pan, and I'll implicate her. Tian-Si went, "Oh, that's it." The nightmare of Ocean Sky Cloud City flashed uncontrollably in her mind at this very moment. Her face turned a bit pale. Luonan saw Tian-Si's reaction, and his previous judgment grew firmer. It's absolutely true, but I can't tell Professor Pan about these things. Senior, come over. We can talk about it. We can think of an excuse, a message, so that Professor Pan won't be angry. That's it. But Professor Pan is a very smart and very sharp person. It's not easy to hide things from her. Tian-Si was unable to think of a way for a while, and her thoughts were a bit scattered. She couldn't help but ask, "Junior Nan, are you in a very dangerous situation right now?" Is there anyone who dares to go against Professor Luo? Cat Eyes always loved to go against Luo Nan, and it was the same right now. Luonan glared at her and turned to face Tian-Si. Of course, it's much better than before. I also have time to do some research. But Luonan saw the change in Tian-Si's expression at this point, and he shook his head to himself. He took the opportunity to give her a reminder. Senior, Cat Eyes can really torment people sometimes. I've been bossing her around lately, and she always wants to find a scapegoat. So you can trust her words, but you can't completely trust her. Don't let her lead you by the nose. Cat Eyes raised an eyebrow, but she just sneered. Tian-Si felt a jolt on her back. Only now did she realize that her conversation with Cat Eyes had been overheard by Luo Nan. This made her a bit embarrassed, but when she thought about it from the bottom of her heart, she relaxed. She lowered her head, but the corner of her lips perked up. She sighed in self-mockery. If my heart doesn't have a direction, how could I be led by someone? Chapter 6:23. You really know how to make trouble for me. Luonan glared at Cat Eyes in a bad mood after Tian-Si left the underground laboratory. You should be able to tell that senior sister Tian doesn't have any talent in this area. In order to pacify Tian-Si's mood, Luonan deliberately sent her to the boundary of the 5th level before walking back. Cat Eyes followed him the entire time, paying no attention to the troublesome situation Tian-Si had created. Yeah, I know, but I thought you were in urgent need of experimental materials. Huh? Luonan stopped at the corner of the stairwell. He felt that there was a lack of communication between him and Cat Eyes. Didn't you say that you wanted to readjust your sensing mode? That you wanted to do some filtering based on the configuration? Even though I don't really understand, I can clearly see the look in your eyes. Cat Eyes gestured with 2 fingers and jabbed at him. Luonan tilted his head back to avoid being blinded by Cat Eyes' sharp fingernails. You must be drunk. Don't say that you didn't want me to be your experimental subject. You're baffling. Cat Eyes raised an eyebrow. You look at everything around you, including inanimate objects and living objects. You want to substitute them into configurations, deconstruct, and optimize them, right? Oh my, Luonan blinked. He swallowed back the words roundworm in your stomach, and so on. However, his expression revealed his true intentions. Do you really think everyone is blind? Cat Eyes sneered and crooked her finger at him. Let me borrow the work area. What? The work area of her drawing software. Luonan didn't understand what Cat Eyes meant, but he did as she said and opened up the interface of the work area. Since he had been conducting a simulation calculation of the external configuration of the blood intent ring not too long ago, the interface stopped at that moment. Cat Eyes didn't want to see this. She bluntly operated in Luonan's stead, saving and exiting. She flipped back to the starting interface of the previous level. Right now, a simple logo appeared before the eyes of the two. It could be considered a simple drawing of the structure of the blood intent ring, but it was separated out to highlight the wedge-shaped section inside. There was also a line of words below. The content was very simple. It was written by Luonan. Without a configuration, there was no way to stand. Cat Eyes chuckled. What a famous saying. Look at this sentence. You want to use configuration to explain everything, deconstruction and reconstruction, right? Luonan coughed. This was the inspiration he obtained from ancient texts. The original words were, If you don't learn poetry, you won't be able to speak. If you don't learn etiquette, you won't be able to stand. This was what Confucius taught his son. He had specially created this interface as a form of motivation for himself. Cat Eyes was quite thoughtful, but her imagination was a bit too big. Don't look at me like that. I'm flustered. Cat Eyes waved her hand. Do you know how much trash we've cleared for you over the past 2 days? Trash? Those tables, chairs, cupboards, and so on that you asked for. Now, the 5th floor is almost full. Do you want to go and admire the current state of the experimental subjects? It's pure corruption. Luo, Nin tried to explain. I want to understand the spatial concept of configuration through these simple pieces of furniture. After all, the configuration is intuitive and the space we're in is too empty. If we want to switch, we need to start from the basics. Cat Eyes raised her hands in surrender. Please spare me. It's fine if you go crazy by yourself. Don't drag me into this. You're the one who's going crazy. Luo, Nin cursed silently, but it looked like Cat Eye's temper was greater than his. I just want to say that if you want to be a Frankenstein, you could just say it. Let everyone be prepared. Others treat you as a savior, but the ark you've sat on is actually a man-devouring demon's lair. Luo Nin frowned. What are you talking about? Cat Eyes stared at him. The Blood Intent Ring and the Abyss Region Fortress are your experimental grounds, right? It's a good idea to test your inspiration, but there are practically all the elite ability users of Xia City there. Don't overdo it and capsize the ship. You'll be a sinner for all eternity. Luo Nin didn't get angry. Instead, he spoke with an extremely certain attitude. The plan I'm bringing out is certainly the most mature plan. In fact, the maturity and firmness of the fortress surpass your imagination. A few cheats, whether they succeed or not, will absolutely not shake the foundation. I'm not talking about that. Then what are you talking about? Even though you haven't been playing with that old hoodlum ghost eye for the past 2 days, do you dare to say that your previous practice was purely for the sake of improving and increasing? Even though there was no one else in the stairwell, Cat Eyes still lowered her voice. I don't know about others, but I'm a cat trapped in your cage. I'm choked to the point of nausea from your killing intent. She reached out to press down on Luo Nin's shoulder as she spoke to this point. She moved closer to his ear and said, You're definitely thinking of doing something dangerous, right, Mr. Captain? Are you playing in a play? Luo Nin retorted in a bad mood. He knew that there were some things that he could not hide from Cat Eyes, who was in the same closed system. He didn't bother hiding it either. I have my own considerations. Of course. It's the same for everyone. But can you not be too impatient? I'm impatient. I'm starting from the basic configuration, bit by bit. Of course it's fine if you keep doing this. You see, I'm helping you find experimental materials, right? But the problem is, don't do things the way you did on the night of the 14th again, okay? Luo Nan's words struck him back to the night of the lecture half a month ago. He really did not understand Cat Eyes' meaning. What happened to me on the 14th? Did the lecture bother you? Hee, I hope you're just purely lecturing. Luo Nan's brows locked tightly as he locked gazes with Cat Eyes. A moment later, his gaze converged and his cheeks drooped slightly. I understand. Yes. While he was lecturing, he had adventured over the Pacific Ocean. He had engaged in a remote contest with 2 extraordinaries. He was indeed under the suspicion of being irresponsible. He had nearly capsized that time. He had implicated over 1,000 ability users of Xia City who had already mentally traversed to the space fortress. Cat Eyes brought up this matter again after half a month had passed. Was it because she felt that he had been too impatient during this period of time? Luo Nin didn't say anything more. It was good to understand some things tacitly. With the matter of Gong Qi pressing down on his heart, it was hard to avoid being impatient in his actions. He originally wanted to resolve this problem in the near future. He never thought that he would discover an even deeper mystery after taking Rue when on a trip to the cloud world. In a certain sense, this was a harvest. A great harvest. But if he didn't handle it well, he would undoubtedly dig a hole for himself. Luo Nin walked back with his head lowered. The layers upon layers of stairs beneath his feet were monotonous and unchanged. But in the end, there was a limit and an end. But if he wanted to dig out the deeper mysteries of the cloud world, it was an enormous project that couldn't be measured. In the face of this enormous workload, killing Gongqi was like a small problem that wasn't worth mentioning. It was like traversing 100,000 mountains just to pluck a single fruit. That fruit had clearly been within reach not too long ago. This intense contrast really tormented Luo Nin quite a bit. Right now, he would silently recite the word patience several dozen times every morning. Only then would he be able to concentrate his energy and throw himself into the research work of basic configurations. Why did he create his own famous aphorism? This sort of hipster behavior forcefully encouraged himself from the ruins of his anxious and frustrated mental state. Cat Eyes' low voice continued to transmit over. There are some things that can't be done in a short amount of time. It's not bad to put them aside for now. Luo Nan let out a ha. He didn't respond. Cat Eyes continued to speak. Though I don't want to mention it, you are indeed in the position of leader right now. It doesn't matter if they are attracted to you or if they are imprisoned. Many people are acting according to your train of thought and thoughts. You are anxious, and many people can't help but be anxious as well. Can't you see that Rue when state hasn't been good these past 2 days? Oh, I know. Luonin had no choice but to speak. Not only did he know that Rue when state was terrible, he also knew the most fundamental reason for this situation. Right now, Luo Nan was referring to the deep layers of the cloud world's configuration fragments. He was studying and understanding the basics of configuration with all his might, using this to correct his own sensing mode. The reason why he did this was to use his most outstanding ability to comb through the structure and foundation of the cloud world. He could penetrate the barriers of space and time and grasp the deeper mysteries of the cloud world. From Luo Nan's perspective, the deep layers of the cloud world's configuration fragments were indeed treasures that he could use as reference. However, his perception was limited, his movements were limited, and he even needed Rue when support to enter and exit. Just the area of black fog that he and Rue were in before was nothing more than a corner of the multi-layered structure of space and time. According to Rue Win's explanation, the changes in the rules and laws of space were extremely large when one went deeper. It wasn't jumping from Asia to Africa, nor was it jumping from Earth to Mars. It was true space-time travel, jumping from one space-time to another space-time. The most appropriate comparison was to jump from local space-time to the cloud world. Wasn't it easy? But if the factor of gear was excluded, then think about Gongqi's current fate. Rue would achieve the effect of becoming one with the environment through the chaotic resonance of the multi-layered structure of space and time. She finally penetrated the barriers and realized the jump. The problem was that the deep layers of the cloud world's space-time fragments were constantly changing. Sometimes, the timing wasn't coincidental. She could only find an optimal solution with multiple compromises, and then use her own tyrannical explosive strength to penetrate through in one spurt of energy. Luo Nin would never be able to learn this move no matter what. He wouldn't even be able to find an opportunity to rely on his own strength to go back and forth in a short amount of time, unless he was able to forcefully interfere with the entire structure of the cloud world with overwhelming strength. That would practically be on the level of the creator. It was completely unrealistic. From this angle, even if Rue had taken a shortcut, how easy could it be? Every time Rue entered and exited the cloud world, she did her utmost. Sometimes, she would even respond to Luo Nan's request to explore deeper regions. Therefore, there were a few times when she was so tired that she nearly collapsed. Luo Nan obviously knew about these problems, but he really couldn't do without Rue when support. Damn, he was back to square one. Luo Nan closed his eyes. He pressed down on his forehead, which was already beginning to heat up. He didn't speak for a long time. Torment himself. Torment others. Chapter 624. December 28th, Friday. It was finally the last weekend of the Gregorian calendar. The Chinese and Western festivals were almost over, and there was still more than a month before the traditional Spring Festival. The students and office workers in Xia City could only hope to hang on to New Year's Day. There were still 3 or 4 days before New Year's Day, But the businesses in the large residential area were still practicing under the lingering warmth of Christmas. Low-end recharges, high-end discounts, and fancy renovations. They had to dig out the last bucket of gold for the year 2096 before the end of the year. As the core area of the large residential area, Cloud City Water Village's high-rise buildings had undoubtedly become the center of activity for the surrounding students and residents. Whenever it was around dinner time, a stream of people could pass through the Water Village's underground parking lot all the way to Aurora Cloud Capital's rooftop observation deck. The taverns and restaurants that were usually lukewarm were also forced to come up with reservation clauses to deal with the huge number of tourists who could not be seen at all. Compared to these, the tea houses, cafes, and cold drink shops scattered around the various buildings as temporary stops for tourists were really hard to find. The group of cadres in the Mystic Arts Research Society found a bar with great difficulty and settled down for the time being. More than 10 people occupied 2 tables, and it was quite crowded. A sharp-eyed person saw that there was a table in the corner of the bar, and only one of the 4 seats was occupied. He said, "There's an empty seat over there. A few of you can go over there." "Over there? Hey, that person looks quite familiar." "Nonsense. There are at least 10,000 faces in the large residential area." "No, look, that person seems to be from our society." "Isn't that perfect? We could get together. If he can happily give up his seat, we'll give him an extra 0. 1 credit. As he said this, someone got up and prepared to share a table, but as soon as his but left his seat, he was pulled back by his companion. "Are you stupid?" His companion pouted slightly, indicating that the idiot could see the expressions of some people on the other table. The other table was relatively spacious, and those sitting there were high-ranking cadres, vice presidents, investors, and so on. Among them, it was obvious that Ok's baby face was dark, and his gaze was like a knife when he turned his head and glanced at the corner. Sitting diagonally across from him, Fei Jean was holding her chin and smiling subtly. "Got it." Thinking of the recent news in the club, many people took a second look and suddenly realized, "Oh my, it's the legendary one. Why is Luo Nen here?" There were some high-ranking members of the society who wished for the whole world to be in chaos. They directly asked the question. Ok's face turned even darker. Fei Jean was still smiling, but no one really broke the ice. Others might not know, but all of the high-ranking officials on the platform knew the origin of the Devil Ray in the lake in front of Gear on the North Shore. From beginning to end, no one had ever heard Luo Nen mention this matter. But when the mutant, which was worth 50 to 60 million, was stuffed into the lake as an ornamental fish, this already made clear the hard path and position of that person. Every single one of the society members present had a net worth of hundreds of millions. 50 to 60 million was not a large sum that was worth looking up to, but the reality was right in front of him. He had no ambition for the power of the society at all. He just wanted a laboratory for fun. Who would purposely poke at this guy when they had nothing to do? And so, after a short period of awkwardness, no one brought up the stupid topic of sharing a seat again. They just pretended not to see the person in the corner. The group of people began to order refreshments and drinks. They chatted to pass the time as they waited for the group activity that would soon begin. When they first entered the bar, Fei Jean, well, it should be said that she was possessed. She had already discovered Luo Nan's existence. In addition to the convenience of being a woman, her current position was the best position to observe Luo Nan. She could see Luo Nan in the corner just by raising her eyes, including most of his movements. And it was through Fei Jin's eyes that Lady Halder was able to size up the target she had been pondering for a long time. Lady Halder had adapted to the tool that was Fei Jin these past few days. She was familiar with the structure of Fei Jin's body and soul. She had a general understanding of Fei Jin's social connections. And Luo Nen had been cooped up in a laboratory all this time. It was really a coincidence that they ran into each other today. Coincidence brought opportunity. Lady Halder observed the target in the corner while chatting with a familiar face next to her. She dealt with Yuru. The reason why she was able to do this was because there were 2 or more souls placed within Fei Jin's body. Let's put it this way for now. The Blood Flame Mortar's seizing secret technique wasn't a direct method of possession. Instead, it was like taming a horse or herding a sheep. It used fear as a rein and despair as a fence to direct the behavior of the original soul, causing it to enter a wonderful half-drunk, half-awake state. It used the instincts deeply rooted within the body to deal with the majority of daily situations. When a special situation or a problem occurred, it would be forcefully corrected. This method seemed gentle, but in fact, it burned vital energy to a great extent. It was extremely ruthless, and it would cause unavoidable harm to the host. Lady Halder didn't take it seriously. In any case, many-sided wouldn't let this person live after this. Right now, most of Lady Halder's effective attention was focused on Luo Nan's body. From her point of view, including in Lu, who temporarily shared this body, Luo Nan's behavior was very strange. Lu heard the news and joined in at the last minute. She observed for a while, but she couldn't understand Luo Nan at all. Why is he being so picky? The virtual workspace opened up on the table in front of Luo Nan. There were many virtual structures that appear to be parts, fragments, and even lines and strokes. They were densely packed, with many layers interweaving and even twisting together. Luo Nan was like taking out a ball of thread or picking out a toothpick. He meticulously disassembled them, but sometimes he even added a few strokes. The operation appeared to be quite complex. He should be doing some sort of classification work. Lady Halder carefully observed Luo Nan's operation in the virtual workspace, especially the last few steps of the multi-step cycle. It seems that the majority of those fragmented structures are meaningful, at least on the level of ability users. Meaningful? Is it referring to the effect of the interference force flow? This should be the configuration he spoke of and demonstrated. Lady Halder recalled the video materials circulating on the internet. She made a comparison and made a preliminary conclusion. The problem is that the details of the structure seem to have little to do with the Blood Soul Temple. It could also be that the disassembly is too fragmented. After all, there aren't many people who can stand at his height to understand the domain of configuration. I actually believe that rumor. Rumor, order of justice, door of truth, and the like. That nonsense from RE. What else? Could it be that these fragmented components are all a part of his inspiration? Lady Halder believed that there were geniuses in the world, but she had always made a clear distinction between accumulation and talent. Of course, this wasn't the main point. From their point of view, if Luo Nan's attainments and configuration weren't related to the Blood Soul Temple, then it would truly be troublesome. Why did the Blood Flame Order's first ablatum and vice ablatum attempt to connect with Luo Nan? It was because the white bone mound that appeared in the Jintong Sea of Death was undoubtedly the configuration of the Blood Soul Temple. So they suspected that Luo Nan had a close relationship with Emolun, who should have died but didn't. On the other side, Luo Nan proposed a series of theoretical prototypes, such as cage, configuration, and so on. He even developed the blood will ring on this foundation. He built a fortress and successfully established himself in the Abyss District. This method, which was highly similar to the fundamental methods of a secret order, allowed them to see the hope of the Blood Soul Temple structure taking a step further. At this very moment, in a certain corner of the world, the structure of the Blood Soul Temple had already materialized. But the problem was that it wasn't under their control. So whether it was in theory or in practice, they needed a clear fulcrum. They needed to firmly exert their strength so that they wouldn't be left far behind. They would be a loss of what to do and where to go. Probing, questioning, and seeking support all fell upon Luo Nan's body at the same time. These two goals actually had inherent contradictions. Lady Halder didn't dare to say that she had a foolproof plan. She could only seek further contact with Luo Nan in order to carry out her plan. Fei Jin observed from a distance. The first ablatum and vice ablatum were pondering. With Luo Nan's identity and current situation, he shouldn't be posing in such a crowded place. There should be something he needs to do. Yes, there really is. Fei Jin's eyes swiveled, and her gaze swept over a familiar face that had just entered the door. The person behind her made a special effort to memorize this face. Tianxi. It was a rare normal person who had a close relationship with Luo Nan. She was once a high-ranking member of the Mutual Aid Association. Right now, Tian-Si was following closely beside an old woman, blindly following her every step. The old woman was around 80 or 90 years old. Her grizzled hair was cut short and stood up like a boy. It was dazzling, but it appeared refreshing. Her figure was on the thin side, but her complexion was rosy. Her clothes were dignified and conservative, and her posture was ramrod straight. She appeared to have quite the bearing and self-cultivation. A group of people naturally saw the old woman when they passed by the two tables of the Shinyan Society. A few people subconsciously shrank their heads back, but even more people stuck out their butts and stood up to show the most basic respect. Professor Pan. The old woman shot a glance over, but she didn't stop. She just nodded in greeting. Under the complicated gazes of a group of people, she headed straight for the corner of the bar, which was Luo Nan's seat. As for Luo Nan, he was clearly excessively engrossed in the configuration fragments of the virtual work area. He only suddenly woke up when the two people arrived at the table. He didn't even bother to tidy up when he saw the newcomers. He hastily stood up. He was just about to greet them when the old woman across from him opened her mouth to ask, "You're Luo Nan?" Her words were clear and full of energy when she opened her mouth. Her voice was a bit louder than a normal person's. She didn't wait for Luo Nan to respond before speaking with furrowed brows. "You're just like your father. You've been infected with the bad habit of mysticism." Luo Nan was a bit stupefied. He subconsciously said, "Can you not mention him?" The corner of the old woman's mouth curled up. "I don't want to pay attention to that guy either." Luo Nan was fully aware that the atmosphere wasn't quite normal, but he couldn't help but have a good impression of the old woman. Tian-Si gave him a meaningful glance at this time, and he remembered to greet her. "Professor Pan, senior sister Tian, please sit." This grizzled-haired old woman was the mentor of Luo Nan's mother, Bo Qingwen. She was the town boss of the school's design department, Professor Pan 1. Chapter 625. After sitting back down, Luo Nan first closed the virtual work area. Then he followed the process he had envisioned before. He picked up the menu, wanting to ask Professor Pan what he wanted to order. The problem was that the light in his work area had just turned off when old Mrs. Pan, who was sitting across from him, projected her own work area through her wristband. Inside was a set of information forms. Old Mrs. Pan had a dull expression. She tapped on the work area and enlarged the form. "Let me give you a report. I'm quite curious as to what kind of young man would be so indecisive in the face of an old lady's invitation. So I use my authority as a teacher to access your real-time database file and investigate your background." "Huh. The final exams haven't started yet, so the statistics of your academic results are flawed. But from the aspects of attendance, in-class tests, performance tracking, and homework completion, you've been growing more and more restless lately. You've been missing quite a few classes, but the procedures are impeccable. You've always been able to pass through dangerous situations. It's filled with the stench of manual labor. Do you know someone with power? You're still using this sort of self-deceiving method in school. You might as well just take a leave of absence." Luo Nan and Tian-Si looked at each other. Tian-Si had no idea that her teacher had such a trick up her sleeve. She was in a bit of a predicament for a time. As for Luo Nan, he felt a bit dizzy from being smacked in the head like a brick. It was as if he had been kicked back to his teacher's home visit. Only then did he understand what kind of personality Tian-Si had described as smart and sharp. Speaking of which, old Mrs. Pan had spoken a bit too deeply with a shallow acquaintance, but Luo Nan couldn't get angry. After all, she was an old lady. She was an elder. She cared about you. He could only rack his brains to think of a way to respond. And at this time, old Mrs. Pan's sharp and strangely clear eyes stared over. "So I have to mention that you and your old man are carved from the same mold. You don't come to school to study, to enrich yourself, and to perfect yourself. You don't do proper things. You go and do irrelevant things. You stir up trouble that you shouldn't get involved in. You also stir up the hearts of innocent girls, and so on." Professor Pan spoke without thinking, but Tian-Si felt quite awkward listening to him. She braced herself and gave the old lady a bit of a reprieve. As for Luo Nan, his head and face were truly covered in dirt. The situation before his eyes was completely different from what he had expected. He practically didn't even have the chance to open his mouth to speak. It wasn't until Tianci gave him another hint that he came to his senses. He didn't care about what other drinks he ordered and poured a cup of tea for the old lady as a sign of respect. This was supposed to be an entry point, but the problem was that the draft he had painstakingly memorized was now useless. He had no idea what to say next. Luonin gaped, but all he did was force out with sweat. Tianci was worried for him. Just as Luonan was about to soothe his cheeks, old Mrs. Pan spun her teacup and raised her chin at Luonan. She pointed at the location of the work area. "What are you doing?" Luonan let out a long sigh of relief. No matter what, he could finally start a normal conversation. He hurriedly replied, "I'm doing some categorization work." He wanted to open up the work area once more and let the old lady look over it. But the old lady shook her head and refused. "There's no need to show me. I'm different from your father. I'm not interested in things that aren't in my field of expertise." Luonan was a bit startled, but he finally found an opportunity to cut to the chase. He didn't have the time to think too much and just said, "Professor Pan, my father was annoying back then. Let's not talk about him, okay? Actually, I've always wanted to know what my mother was like back in school. Can you tell me about it?" Professor Pan, Win's expression was calm. He just used his fingers to pinch the handle of his teacup. He had no intention of starting a conversation. Luonin could only brace himself and continue. "You might not know this, but I've always lived with my aunt and uncle. I don't understand the situation back then at all. No one told me." Luonan saw that he couldn't continue, so he could only cast his pleading eyes toward Tianci. But then old Mrs. Pan's resonant voice entered his ears. Qingwen was probably like this when she was in school. She did what she needed to do and dealt with the problem she was best at. "Old Mrs. Pan, why are you mocking me?" Luonin simply wanted to slap the table to death. Tianci opened her mouth to speak, but she was stopped by old Mrs. Pan's stern gaze. Old Mrs. Pan didn't say anything after that. She just watched Luonan's expression. Just as the young man was embarrassed and reserved to the extreme, her fingers left the handle of her teacup, and she slowly stood up. "Since you're so nervous yourself, then this old woman won't be an eyesore here. I have a family banquet today, and it just so happens that it's upstairs. I'll head over directly." This was it? Luonin stood up bewildered. He didn't know whether he should urge her to stay or let out a sigh of relief. Tianci didn't dare to say anything. She could only give Luonin a comforting gaze and extend her hand to help the old woman out of her seat. But her actions were reprimanded in the blink of an eye. "I can't recognize the road anymore. Can't I walk?" This was the first time Tianci encountered such a situation ever since she came into contact with Professor Panwin. She was scared stiff on the spot. The two youngsters watched as the old woman moved out of her seat and walked out. They wanted to speak, but they didn't have the courage to do so. Luonin could only give Tianci a meaningful glance, indicating that she should follow behind to avoid a situation. Tianci took a deep breath and calmed herself down a bit. She nodded in understanding. Just as they were exchanging meaningful glances, the old woman in front of them suddenly stood still. She half turned around and said, "Luonan, right? Huh?" "Yes, Professor Pan." Luonan subconsciously straightened his body. Old Mrs. Pan's expression didn't change. She just looked Luonan up and down a few times before speaking. "I can only say that your appearance isn't ugly. I heard that your family's conditions aren't that extravagant, and your glib tongue isn't that nimble. Presumably, you don't rely on your face, money, or flowery words to live. Of course, you don't have the temperament of a leader. You have no way of making others bow down to you." Luonin was stupefied. He didn't know whether or not he should accept these evaluations. Old Mrs. Pan continued to speak. "But even so, you still have Tianci and a few people to help you. You can even change the school's database. It's impossible to do this just by relying on a person. I think that at the very least, you should be relying on your own ability to make a living. If that's the case, then you're similar to Qingwen. That's good." The old woman suddenly smiled. The wrinkles at the corner of her eyes bloomed, but it was gentle, calm, and peaceful. Then she turned around once more. Her steps were gentle, and she walked against the flow of people as she left, step by step. However, the last 3 words lingered between her lips and teeth, echoing in Luo Nan's ears. Chapter 626. The people of the Mystic Research Society were certainly unable to hear the conversation between the old lady and the young man in the corner. However, the odd atmosphere was enough for some people to see some clues. There were professional enthusiasts like OK among the high-level cadres of the Mystic Arts Research Society. There were also gossip lords who were extremely interested in private relationships. What's going on between old lady Pan and this Luo guy? Even if a 10th grade kid used his connections, he wouldn't be able to get into the School of Design. Where the hell did you guys do your homework when you were bidding? The designer of North Bank Ear is this bro's mother. Looking at the time, he was probably old lady Pan's disciple back in the day. Oh, I remember now. A few days ago, Xie Junping chattered on endlessly. I got tired of listening to him, so I automatically blocked it. With this gossip lord mentioning it, it was hard for the 2 platforms to deliberately ignore Luo Nan's existence. The direction of the discussion naturally changed. Luo Nan's name was like a thunderclap piercing the ears of this group of cadres of the Mystic Research Society during this period of time, sealing off the 3rd underground floor, directly confronting Vice President OK, raising a devil ray. These methods simply made it clear that Luo Nan was a big shot. This was a big shot that had appeared out of nowhere. Random people should get out of the way. But this kid clearly didn't even make it to the last bus to join the society. It seemed like his family background wasn't particularly outstanding. Was this gorgeous turn of events meant to harm the eyes of the people of the Mystic Research Society? Such an abrupt turn of events naturally created enough topics of discussion. If one were to dig deeper, there would be enough gossip waiting to be discovered or created. After pondering a few times, someone really did dig out a bit of information. Speaking of which, I've heard this name before. Hee. You guys probably won't be able to guess who brought it up. The suspenseful technique was clumsy enough, but the timing was good. Others would pinch their noses and support him. The suspenseful person didn't let the gossip lord enjoy the limelight amidst a bunch of jeers. He successfully attracted a wave of attention. Only then did he reveal the answer. It's our great president. President? Tang Yi. I just remembered it. That was at the end of September, right? The club's shares hadn't changed yet, so I was in charge of the entrance test for new members. At that time, senior sister Tang was pretty much out of the picture and was only a vice president in name. But that day, she specifically came over to greet me, saying that she would take care of Luo Nan during the interview. In the end, Luo Nan didn't come at all. That's why I have such an impression. Hey, what's their relationship? Keeping him in suspense, he said he's my friend's younger brother. Friend? Man on no, girlfriend? In any case, there was one point that could be emphasized after a round of discussion. This fellow Luo Nan had held both inside and outside. Though his background was fuzzy, it could be seen from his performance that he was solid even within the Mystic Arts Research Society, where the 2nd generation gathered. Therefore, if he could avoid provoking them, he would. Professor Pan wouldn't left her seat at this time. She refused to support her, but Luo Nan and Tian Si still wanted to see her off. The 3 walked past one after another. The 2 tables also shut their mouths. Those who had stood up with their buttocks in the air just now had to do it again, regardless of whether the old lady agreed or not. The 2 tables of the Mystic Research Society finally let out a sigh of relief when the 3 of them left the water. The topic of conversation became even more open. There were even people who began to feel injustice for, okay, it's because of old Xie's nagging and some people's messy help that a lot of things weren't done smoothly during the theme week. Later on, it's like an aquarium. Okay didn't appreciate these remarks at all. His face turned even greener. A Trigram Lord had a good relationship with Quebec. He sat next to OK, so he patted OK's arm and comforted him, "Don't lower yourself to the level of this idiot. I heard that this bro's mother died early. He lacked love since he was young, so he drew a circle to occupy it like a family dog. He probably thinks that place is his mother's embrace, and he's secretly crying." These words amused quite a few people. Actually, A trigram lord was a bit afraid of Luo Nan, but he liked to take advantage of people with his glib tongue. He saw Luo Nan leave the room, and he laughed and added, "What do you guys think? From that bro's point of view, if someone were to go in and out of those floors, wouldn't it be the same as—" Oh my God! A cup of half-hot coffee was directly splashed onto 8 trigram lord's face. His eyes, nose, and mouth weren't spared. There was also his collar and front lapel. It was truly hot, painful, and embarrassing. At this moment, not to mention the 2 nearby tables, even the surrounding area was stunned by the sudden change in the situation. The water bar actually went silent for half a second. "Fei Jin, are you King sick?" A trigram lord suddenly jumped 3 feet into the air. There was still coffee dripping down from his eyelashes. He had to wipe his hands, but his hands were spread apart. He looked like a duck that had been doused in boiling water. As for Fei Jin, the instigator of all this, she slowly put down her murder weapon. She had an elegant demeanor and responded with a faint smile. "I saved your life. No need to thank me." A trigram lord's mind exploded. "You King. Old Chow. Go wash up first." Only then did someone come to their senses. They hurriedly stood up to stop the fight. No matter who was right or wrong, they had to first persuade them to leave. This was to avoid making an even bigger joke in public. A trigram lord's brain was basically muddled right now, but he was still subconsciously afraid of Fei Jin. He was pulled away by the people around him, and he subconsciously stepped down from the slope. He walked out of his seat while cursing and waving away the support of others. He also tried his best to block out the strange gazes of the people around him as he walked to the bathroom. But before he could take 2 steps, someone passed by in front of him, blocking his path. He raised his head and saw Luo Nan's young and inexperienced face. "He's back." A trigram lord and Luo Nan looked face to face. He shivered in the next second and instinctively averted his gaze. It was also at this moment that cold air clearly grew in his cranial cavity. Even his brain juice was about to freeze. "He wants to kill me." An inexplicable thought popped out and pounded on his heart. Actually, Luo Nan didn't move at all. He just crossed paths with A trigram lord. A trigram lord's mind was in a mess. He simply didn't notice the multifunctional robot in front of him that was delivering refreshments. He just bumped into it and flipped the tray over. He even had to drink the boiling hot coffee. He screamed miserably and lost his balance. His face fell to the ground, bringing about another wave of chaos. A trigram lord's miserable state was right in front of them, but the 2 tables of the Mystical Research Society weren't able to react in time. The reason was very simple. Luo Nan's gaze streaked across the 2 tables as he walked back. The cold air seemed to be able to completely freeze the hot drinks on the 2 tables. Of course, the people's reactions and courage were frozen as well. Only when Luo Nan and Tian Si sat back down did someone from the Mystical Research Society get up to check on 8 trigram lord's situation. They helped him clean up and treat him. The others looked at each other in dismay. A few high-ranking officers finally reacted. They lowered their voices to the lowest level. "That person seems to be from the circle. He's the government, the military, or a special person from the Starry Sky Club. C. Oh, no wonder. Why don't we leave? It's too obvious." After all, the Mystic Arts Research Society was considered a professional hobbyist organization. Plus, they were situated in a high-ranking domain with social authority. They had some understanding and contact with some half-true and half-false channels and circles. They soon discovered the mistake in the topic of discussion just now. There was nothing wrong with people with simple backgrounds. There was nothing wrong with people with simple abilities. However, it was very hard to deal with people with both backgrounds and abilities. This was especially true for these freaks who possessed some sort of super social attribute. Maybe I should hire a bodyguard in a related field. A lackey who wears an exoskeleton armor every day? In the short term, it won't just be through the channels of the military. The problem is that we don't have any right now. Okay? The group of high-ranking officers were undoubtedly in a difficult position. Only Fei Jin had a smile on her face from beginning to end. It was as if she hadn't been the one splashing that person's face just now. Many of her companions had no choice but to admire her information channels and decisiveness from such an enigmatic attitude. Some people tried to get some clues, but Fei Jean didn't refuse. She casually chatted awkwardly with this group of people. Her main focus was still on Luo Nan. She watched as Luo Nan and Tian Si sat back in the corner and conversed in low voices. She was thankful for Gossip Lord's stupidity. When Luo Nan's ice-cold gaze swept past earlier, it was only when he looked at her that his gaze softened. This was a good start. However, the controller behind Fei Jean didn't have any intentions of striking while the iron was hot. She paid close attention to the various details in the corner with interest. She combined it with the harvest from her previous observations and gradually came up with a basic train of thought. Inlo, boss, I remember that multifaceted sent out an intelligence topic a few days ago. It's closely related to this person. They even invited an expert to conduct a psychological diagnosis. The name should be Persona. Inli's memory was trustworthy. Yes, a persona. Mrs. Halder smiled. That's just a half-finished product, and the fee is so expensive. However, it's worth it now. Bring me that intelligence report. If everything goes smoothly, we'll know how to communicate with this person. The first and deputy ablatums of the Bloodflame Order were in a temporary foothold in Xia City. It was very easy for them to search through the information. They soon found the intelligence report that was being paid for. This intelligence report was more or less a summary. It specifically extracted information on Luo Nan's social interactions and carried out a relevant psychological analysis. The problem was that no matter how authoritative an expert in psychology was, it would be hard for them to determine the nature of an ability user, especially a powerful character. After all, every ability user more or less possessed a supersocial attribute. Even in terms of pathology, the structure of the body and soul would undergo structural changes to a greater or lesser degree. On a medical level, it could even be diagnosed as an organic lesion. Of course, this was far from the main point. Luo Nan's situation might be even more complicated. It was said that this person had been undergoing body modifications through injecting nerve drugs starting from the age of 10. Any expert would be flabbergasted when faced with Luo Nan's greatly mutated nervous system structure. They would be speechless. They could only make assumptions based on the external performance of the target. They could only make a general analysis and judgment. The conclusions drawn from Luo Nan's situation were rather rough. They weren't even convincing.